5 years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy.
Wake up!
Wake up, will you, pal?
They need a wake-up call.
Someday this country's gonna wake up.
Wake up and smell the coffee.
When's the last time you guys have played Madden, the video game?
Oh, it's a couple years ago. I stopped getting it a couple years ago. The game got kind of boring, kind of the same thing. My team stunk. You know how it goes. You know.
Mark?
Yeah,
I have a wife.
It's been a few years.
Of course, I play other video games. Why?
I
What
love
about
how
you? It's been 20 years for you, hasn't it? 15
I love
years?
how you described it and then waited till the end. Yeah, you do have that wife.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got a
Nikki
wife.
probably wants me a little bit more occupied on other things.
Got a kid, you know.
Yeah, it probably has been nearly 20 years for me, but I will say that when I did play it, and certainly I played it very religiously growing up, I'd always go to the injuries and turn them off.
See, I was the opposite of you.
I'm like, you know what? No.
No.
I want to control my luck here. I don't want any of that. My team will not be derailed by any injuries. And as we sit here on this Wednesday morning, I mean in all seriousness to Juju Brents, there's not a player on this Colts roster that has had worse injury luck. You feel absolutely terrible for him. We talked to him at training camp. And more so than probably any player on that roster, I wish I could just go in there and turn off injuries for him and let him have a healthy season. And unfortunately, knee injury coming out of week 1, and he is going to miss potentially the rest of this 2024 season.
Yeah, it's a sad thing. Listen, I know we'll dive into what does it mean for the team the rest of the year? What does it mean for the construct of this roster depth-wise with Chris Ballard? I totally get it. Those are conversations. Hell, what does it mean even this week against, what I think is a pathetic quarterback in Malik Willis, but a pretty damn good roster in the Green Bay Packers? All those things are on the table, but, yesterday, it was 4 o'clock-ish, 4:10-ish, when the news started to come out about Juju Brents, and I'm with you. I went back to our conversation that we had with him at training camp and, only playing 9 games last year, being a local kid, being a Colts fan growing up, his family being a bunch of Colts fans growing up, he got to kind of, live that. And I think this year was about his development, him becoming, one of their better players on the back end of that defense. And, him going down, it has ramifications for the team. But you feel bad for him. 9 games last year, and probably the way we're looking at it, 1 game this year, 10 games in 2 years in the NFL. It's tough, man. It's not good, and it's you feel bad for him. You really do.
I had taken my first sip of beer.
I know.
Yesterday when that news broke.
Yeah, we were at the Sports Core, which was fantastic. We appreciate those fine people having us down at Gamebridge, and I kind of used the bathroom, and I came out and had my beer with me, and I see KB, and KB goes, Juju Brents news. And then you went to the table and wrote a story and put it on the website. So I got to see you work, but that's not a good thing.
Thank you very much to the people at the Indiana Sports Corps for inviting us. It was a great time over there at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Shout out to Rick Fusen, Emery Tiernan, very well deserved in their honors. It was great to see all the tributes to Jim Morris as well yesterday. But I've never been so happy to be sitting at table 48.
Yeah. In the back.
Yeah, that's where A, we belong, and then B,
right.
I was able to, mobilely type out that story on Juju Brents. Yeah, I think the other thing is just, Andy, we sit here and we're like, damn, like you don't even remember it happening. I was talking to some people yesterday that were listening to the radio broadcast, and they said that Lara Overton had mentioned Juju getting his knee looked at very briefly. I think it was kind of early to midway point of the second quarter. But, never went into the blue tent. It was not announced any sort of injury. If you look at the snap counts from Sunday, Juju played 62 of the 79 defensive snaps. So was out there as that third corner a whole lot. Remember, it was the third quarter when he made that leaping grab near the sideline and, for a brief moment there, had a huge interception on that sideline. And then, he did post-game media. Shane Steichen didn't mention it.
No,
after the game. He didn't even mention it yesterday. Not that he necessarily has to mention it yesterday, or I should say on Monday during that post-practice Zoom or post-film session Zoom. But then the news broke yesterday. So on injured reserve, sounds like maybe the door is cracked for him to return sometime in December. But nonetheless, for the present and the future of a position that has many, many questions, this is obviously huge news. So we'll continue to talk about it all morning long as the Colts get back to practice here on this Wednesday.
Yeah, reminder, it's a Wednesday. It's a hump day. You know what that means. I mean, Stephen Holder, I guess, is good timing to have him on. He'll join us coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. And then we mentioned being over at Gamebridge yesterday. The Fever back in action coming up tonight. So Caitlin Clark and company. It looks like Asia Wilson is going to play.
Yeah, I saw she's not in the injury report.
Yeah, tonight. So all seems to be good. She missed 2 games. I guess it's too bad she couldn't miss a third game. Although if you have, expensive tickets tonight, Asia Wilson and Caitlin Clark, maybe the 2 best players right now in the WNBA. Listen, there's a lot of ways we can take this. And I know today there's going to be a lot of anger and vitriol. You have to lash out at somebody, and there has been over the last however many hours, KB, kind of lashing out on why didn't Chris Ballard, general manager, do enough? And we can get to that. I want to get to that. I think for the most part, that is a fair conversation. But I think all these things, I saw our guy Jimmy Cook, by the way, shout out to he and his wife on their beautiful baby, Chance. I love that name.
Chance Cook.
It's a great name.
Sound like a great middle linebacker for Ron Collie at some point down the road.
It's a great name.
Future Yankees prospect. Or the horse collar, just filling the A gap on 4th and 1.
I was going to say he sounds, I don't know why my mic went off there. I was going to say he sounds like a future Notre Dame football player.
Oh.
That's the first thing I
Now
thought.
we can beat Northern Illinois, baby.
So shout out to them. But I think, listen, our brains can hold multiple positions, if you will, at one time. You can feel bad for the kid. You can understand so early in the season, it is an absolute blow to this team, the depth at that position. And then you also can say simply, before the season, this is what worried us, that the depth was not going to be there. And I go to the development. Anthony Richardson last year, KB, what we missed out on not only was a fun season, but it was watching him, do some of the things that he did Sunday against Houston. And that's how I feel with Juju Brents. We get yet another season now, the better part of 2 years of his early career, to where we're not seeing that development to a guy that, they had to think had the talent to become a number 1 corner, and that's where we sit today. The frustration with Ballard, the frustration of the building with this team, the frustration for the kid, and the frustration not watching a good local young player develop before our eyes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. And again, at a premium position and a position of present and future need. You have very little confidence in that group before yesterday, and you have very little confidence in that group moving forward. Given just the makeup of that position. It's, in a way, it's kind of similar to the Jelani Woods injury at tight end. That is another position group that I don't think you have a lot of confidence in here on this Wednesday morning. And then moving forward, you certainly have questions there, given the makeup of that position group. And, you can easily dance on the Chris Ballard offseason grave right now. I mean, that is 1,000% true. I've probably been beyond a broken record, so I apologize for doing it again. But, Andy, I've said to you many times throughout this offseason, there's 4 boxes to be checked in the secondary. 4 boxes that, to me, add to my confusion on why they have not done more in the secondary. The 4 boxes is Nick Cross, good. Are Juju Brents and Jalen Jones, good. Those are 2 boxes. The other 2 would be health-related.
Sure.
One would be surrounding the career of Julian Blackmon, and then one would be surrounding the career of Juju Brents. And here we are, 1/17 through the season, and one of those 4 boxes has already shown up in a big, super unfortunate, but a big, big way. And, is there bad luck with Juju Brents? Undoubtedly. Is this now the 8th injury of his NFL career? It is. So if you show me that track record, then I'm probably going to sit there and think to myself, you know what? Insurance would be nice to have at that position. And again, so many people shouted from the rooftops for the Justin Simmons of the world. And I said, well, that's fine and well this offseason. How about just a little bit of something? You don't have to, 15th overall pick, it doesn't have to go to a corner. Hindsight's 2020, but again, I wasn't one of those shouting for corner at 15 overall, but waiting till round 5, not doing anything in free agency, all of that was where my confusion was so rooted in the lack of moves in the secondary here. So even little stuff. I mean, if you want to look at what they did, a week and a half ago, they cut their lone outside depth corner in Daryl Baker Jr.
Who got picked up
with Dallas Flowers banged up, and in return, they kept 20 defensive linemen. Or 20 guys in the trenches, I should say. 10 on defense, 10 on offense.
So there might be a time that they actually do keep 20
I was
defensive
gonna say,
linemen. We're laughing at it, but I don't know if it's worth laughing at.
If Ballard would have his way, he probably would keep 20 defensive linemen. And we saw, what those returns were in week 1 when, again, an outside corner right now is needed for this football team. So, it's unfortunate that you have to say, I told you so, but here we are, and there's plenty of evidence to say, I told you so, in that you have a very oft-injured player that they decided to ignore that throughout the offseason, and here you are, 1 game into the season, and now it's already shown up.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate as well. Yesterday, the news comes out a couple hours after Gus Bradley met with the media. Shane Steichen will meet with the media today, so we'll get you some of that Gus Bradley sound as we go. But, of course, Shane Steichen will get his first thoughts on it as an injury to Juju Brents. Listen, I'll be clear on the Chris Ballard stuff. I think there's 2 things with Chris Ballard. I am interested, number one, if there's anyone who doesn't want to hear the Chris Ballard stuff today, that wants to focus on the team and the injury and that sort of thing. But I think the reality is that most Colts fans are doing the "I told you so" today with this. And I
think most might be underselling it.
I think it's all. I believe in options on a roster, and Chris Ballard left himself thin in the defensive backfield. And he did so on purpose, whether that is he believes in his guys, he believed in his guys, he believed too much in the secondary, whether, he didn't want to bring in a bunch of veterans because then the coaches might, get the hankering to play the veteran, and he wants to see the new guys play, and he believes in the new guys and the development of the new guys and everything else. But the reality is that not enough was done on the back end, and you were hoping that would not rear its ugly head this season at all, or if it did, it would be something that would be manageable. And this is, an injury in game 1. I mean, the only saving grace is you don't have Jordan Love this week, and then Caleb Williams and whatever the hell the quarterback situation is going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So throwers of the football, the next couple weeks, you hope you can limp through and get some wins and kind of get your footing. But I'm sorry, there's not a good option on this roster. I mean, Samuel Womack just got here. Dallas Flowers in the preseason was a mess. He was a healthy scratch on Sunday. I mean, any other name you bring up is very much a practice squad type player that I'm not sure is ready to be in the NFL. And, it's unfortunate. And listen, there is no excuse that should be given for Chris Ballard in this. He could have gone out and through the draft and through free agency, given himself depth. He could have given himself options, and he decided as the builder of this team to not do that. And it bit him and it bit this team in the ass at the very beginning, and it bit him in the ass when they have had players on that back end, and you mentioned it right there, KB, that have been injury prone. Not guys like DeForest Buckner who have played 3, 4, 5 years.
This is not the Quentin Nelson durability.
Games. Yeah. Again, you're dealing with a guy in Juju Brents who only played 9 games last year. I mean, I just started last year, and all the shows we were doing at the beginning was, hey, when's this guy going to play? When's he going to practice? When's he going to play? So it's unfortunate for everyone. And again, I mean this. The only fortunate thing is they don't have Jordan Love this weekend, because if they limped in with that secondary, with Jordan Love and that wide receiver crew, I'm afraid it would be terrible.
Yeah,
I really am.
It's one of those situations, too, where it's like we were all saying it through training camp, that the position was thin. They should add somebody. We're not supposed to know more than the people in the front office there. Those are the guys that are getting paid to make these decisions, that should be able to evaluate talent. But it's like, if it's obvious to us, how is it not obvious to them? That's what always drives me crazy.
And I hope we find the balance today and not for 3 hours saying I told you so, because I think we easily could. And the receipts are everywhere. I mean, I sent out screenshots of it last night. Mark could find audio clips probably daily between now and dating back to March of this stuff.
I have a wife and kids, Kevin.
Yeah,
of every single show on the radio station.
So
we could do it all day if you want.
I'll speak for us and say we'll try not to do this for 3 hours, but I think that is what adds the frustration. Is it was certainly in my eyes, and I think I speak for everyone's eyes, so crystal clear of just doing something. Again, you're not asking for Ronnie Lott and Bob Sanders to all of a sudden show up, but just something given the injury history, and of course. One game into the season, it has already bit the Colts. It does sound like a little bit more optimism on the Matt Gay front as we shift gears here to week 2. We'll see about DeForest Buckner. The Colts did work out several defensive tackles earlier this week. Didn't sign anybody as of yet. So be curious kind of Buckner and what his availability looks like as they get back to work today. And we'll probably we will get some official word on exactly how much the gamesmanship is there for Green Bay here in week 2. As the first practice for the Packers and the Colts coming up later today. The Fever are an underdog tonight at home against the Aces. This is one of those baseball series. They'll take on Vegas tonight. They'll do it again on Friday. As Andy said, Asia Wilson is the best player in the WNBA. I think that's very apparent. She is a walking double-double. I think 28 and 29 she had against the Fever in the prior 2 meetings this season. First time the Fever have hosted the Aces this year. Wilson did have, I think, games over 40 here recently. So that should be a fun atmosphere tonight. I think
tickets are doable. Upper levels are like $20-$25.
Really?
That's not too bad.
No,
that
is very, very doable on that end. So 4 games left for the Fever, 3 at home, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. They will take on the Mystics on the road next week. They are kind of in this weird pattern right now of they would have to win out and the Aces would have to close to lose out for the Fever to get all the way to home court. There's not a super big advantage on paper to being anywhere from 5, 6, or 7. Right now the Fever are the 6th seed. Again, there's not a huge discrepancy in what it would mean to be the 5, 6, or 7. To refresh everyone's memory, the first round series are still best of 3 no matter where you're at. And unless you're one of the 1, 2, 3, or 4 seeds, you don't get home court until game 3, which would be the obviously the clinching game. One way or the other. The first 2 games would be on the road for the Fever. So it's kind of odd. If they lose tonight, they might be in one of those predicaments of should they rest a little here in the last week? Because they're playing their starters a ton right now.
I mean, Caitlin Clark's playing the entire game.
They're not, and Kelsey Mitchell's playing a ton.
Sure.
Leah Boston's playing. They are not dipping into their bench a whole lot there. So they have a chance to put some pressure on the Aces here. But they really need to be pretty perfect the rest of the way. That's a 7 o'clock tip. I think it's the WTHR sister station tonight if you're looking for the Fever.
Yeah, I don't care as much, and I probably should. I understand it more, Gates for Gamebridge Fieldhouse and just having the games down the street here and being able to go to them. But, with me, Caitlin Clark and the Fever now, by proxy, they have so many fans, KB, when they go into these arenas, it doesn't feel like it's a true road game for them, whatsoever. So it's I care a little bit less about them getting home court advantage simply because, I don't know what the Connecticut Sun, I don't know up there where the Mohegan Sun is, if that holds 12,000 or 15,000, whatever it is, but I kind of feel like half of it's going to be Caitlin Clark anyway, right? It's not Tyrese Halliburton going into Madison Square Garden. That it's not.
Yeah, it's
not that.
Probably a good point.
It's not that atmosphere.
Again, I think that would be absolutely electric inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse if and when they do get a home playoff game. So I probably look at it more of that side of it. The opposing team would wilt there. Not necessarily yes, if the Fever play on the road, it's going to have more of a neutral feel than any other team in the WNBA. But I look at it more of if you've got a home court advantage in the playoffs, I mean, look at their home record here over the last, 2 months? I mean, there's no way they've lost more than 3 games at home here over the last couple of months. I mean, they've been outstanding. So that will be 3 road games here coming up Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. You guys see that news yesterday? One of our more interesting guests we've had on officially back for the 500 next year. Kyle Larson.
I saw that. Mm-hmm. That's not surprising news in any way, right?
No, I just think we need some.
He totally got the bug yesterday or last season.
Yeah, we need some finality on it. You were reminded, at least I was reminded, just how much he was a threat throughout the month of May. I mean, qualifying 5th on a wild qualifying day for him, and he was very honest with us and telling us the two things he was worried about on race day were restarts and pit stops. And those were his two issues. He had a gear issue on one of the restarts and a pit stop penalty. What did he finish? 17th, 18th, something like that. But, I think, at least I am certainly curious after him going through that experience, how much he just absolutely loved it. The fans clearly ate it up. All the pomp and circumstance, I think, not only was real, but then as a driver, he certainly acquitted himself very, very well. I can't wait for May and to have that storyline alive and well again. So Kyle Larson back for a second year, and he will now try to do the double with Mother Nature helping out.
Yeah, there were two things I immediately thought of when I saw the news yesterday. One was you wonder. I mean, the weather ruined nearly ruined his entire day. I mean, it basically
ruined it both stops.
Yeah, it basically, with here and where was it, Charlotte? I mean, it just. It washed out what was going to be a big day for him. So you wonder if that didn't happen, right? If he would have got, I don't know, 6th in the Indy 500 that went to Charlotte and got 3rd or something, if that would have kind of quenched his thirst to do the double. And then the other one, where would we put the early, this might be a Jake Query question, where would we put the early over-under on Kyle Larson next year in the Indy 500? You feel like he'll fix the issues that he had, right? Going into the pits, he'll fit. He had a couple mishaps. He won't have mishaps.
Yeah, he had
in year
some, you call it kind of self-inflicted wounds, right? You sound like an NFL coach.
Yeah, he ain't going to have that. I put it 7.5.
I mean, qualified 5th. I mean, and again, had the issue on the first qualifying attempt. And, yeah, I would say a top 5, top 7 finish for Kyle Larson seems extremely attainable.
Yeah.
And
I mean, 7.5.
We had issues getting several drivers on last May. And for Kyle Larson to give us the time and not treat us like, it's just a run-of-the-mill, I do so many of these, I don't have time for, local indie radio. He was great with us. Mm-hmm. Great with us.
No, he was good. Who are the two drivers that we got that got confused in the booking of them?
Oh, God, don't bring that up again.
Christian Lundgaard and who else?
Christian Rasmussen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was humbling.
That was fun.
God, what a nice guy.
That was a proud moment for me. Ed Carpenter, I don't think Snow's forgiven me.
No.
KB's eyes got big, and I remember going, oh, okay.
Gosh. And they're best friends, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
We've all been there.
They're
Mark,
good friends.
thank
They're
you.
good
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, Mark did admit, not one of his finer moments.
Say one of my lowest, probably.
Stephen Holder at 8, Lin Dunn at 9. Certainly be remiss on a day like today not to think back on what did occur, the horrific events of our country on September 11th, 2001. Certainly some vivid memories for myself. 6th grade. Boy, I can remember like it was yesterday, being in Carl Kinnear's English class on that morning. And the signs that say never forget certainly is something that I hold true. And think about all the first responders on that morning. So thinking about them today here on this September 11th.
Yeah, I'll echo your sentiments. So I was, I guess, a junior in high school, Jeffersonville High School, Rick Neumeyer's TV class, and I just remember, quite frankly, for days, how many of my teachers, of course, older. We're like, hey, basically, we're going to be quiet, do your homework, the TV's going to be on, that's what we're doing today. We're not doing, whatever's math, English isn't going to be on the forefront today. And, combine 9/11 with, my family knew a bunch of people in Oklahoma City when they went through the bombing there. Just 2 tragic days, 2 terrible days. And, today I'll probably spend a little time dialing into some New York City sports radio just because as they remember it through 9/11. But now 23 years later, all those lives have been impacted. And for me, it's unbelievable that it's been 23 years.
Yeah. That always blows your mind, too. That it's just, there's people on this earth that have no recollection. They're like, oh, that was a long time ago. And it's
you got to think, if there's mothers that passed away with a 7, 8-year-old son, these are people now who are in their 30s, mid-30s, 40s. At this point, they've obviously grown up with their lives changed forever.
I was going to Early Bird English. My mom was dropping me off at school, and we had like the B105 version of Chicago radio on, and they're like, oh, a small plane has hit one of the World Trade Centers. And you're like, well, that's weird. And then you realize it was not just a small plane, and it just kept going after that. And you're like, oh my God. And then my dad worked downtown, and he got evacuated because he worked near where the Sears Tower was. And it was just that so much uncertainty. And I just remember looking at the sky and you don't see any planes in the air. It was just this weird, one of the eeriest feelings you got in your life.
Beautiful day weather-wise and such an eerie day. I remember, getting off the bus and going home and just thinking, gosh, when is my mom going to get home? Like one of those items there. So, again, thinking about certainly New York, the Pentagon, Pennsylvania, that flight as well here on this 9/11.
And support your local fire departments and stuff, too. I know there are a lot of, they'll do a lot of memorials today and stuff, whether the officers and the firefighters will come out and raise the flags and everything like that. I know Brownsburg does that. They actually have a 9/11 tribute out there where they actually have a piece of one of the towers out there.
Oh, wow.
Which is
there's
pretty
always
fascinating.
I'm sure I'll pass it again today. There's always someone right over the bridge at 56 and 465 on the west side. Just short of the Colts Complex, Eagle Creek area, that they wave an American flag all throughout today over that bridge. So, it's
a tough day.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Tough day, no doubt. Lin Dunn again will join us, Fever GM, coming up at 9 o'clock. Stephen Holder from ESPN. We'll talk some Colts with him at 8 o'clock. And obviously, the Juju Brents situation, injury, the fallout, we'll continue talking about that as well. Coming up on the other side, what did Gus Bradley say about the Packers on Sunday? Plus your scores and all the news from overnight. Your morning check down, it's coming up next. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this Wednesday. Wake up call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
The high energy of Lin Dunn going to join us here in about 90 minutes. Our weekly Wednesday combo with Stephen Holder at 8. Plenty of Colts items to get to here as they get back to the practice field. Today, Colts-Packers, it will be Greg Olsen on the call with Joe Davis coming up on Sunday. I can't.
That's awesome.
Maybe
He's
some
good.
fan can correct me on that. I don't remember an Olsen-Colts game. I don't know. Maybe there was one out there, but looking forward to that on the TV copy as we hit this morning check down.
Wait, real quick, did you guys hear any of Tom Brady's play-by-play? Were you fans of that, or
I did not. I was still at the Colts game. Wrapping up.
So I got home by about halftime, and I know he's being beat up a little bit for it. Can we give him a couple games?
Yeah.
Before we call him a total bum?
he was fine?
I mean,
but
can we give him a couple games? I mean, yeah, I think he was just okay, right?
yeah, I do think Greg Olsen is excellent.
No,
I think
Olsen's
he's
good.
outstanding.
I think he's tremendous.
Yeah, Olsen's good. So that'll be good on Sunday with the Packers and the Colts. Reminder, that one coming up at 1 o'clock. Right now, it still stands Colts favored by about a field goal. Now, as for the Packers, we basically know Malik Willis is going to start. I mean, I would be surprised. It would be I mean, it'd be a stunner right now if Jordan Love played on Sunday. So defensive coordinator Gus Bradley was asked about playing a different quarterback. Here's what he had to say about Malik Willis yesterday.
Right now we're studying Malik, and getting prepared for him, kind of the style when he did play. It's tough, right? Like you don't know exactly, are they going to utilize him, some of his skill set that he had from college, or are they going to, have him be the quarterback and then say, hey, this is our system, let's go operate it. But we may throw a few wrinkles or two in there. So, I think we're looking at him now, just the style of play, the athleticism that he has and the styles of throw that he makes and what he's good at. And then we're getting back to, really the scheme that Green Bay's running.
Part of me is like, well, Malik Willis couldn't beat out Mason Rudolph for the backup job in Tennessee. I don't think I'm too worried about this one on Sunday for the Colts. But then part of me is like, Kevin, did you watch P.J. Walker's fourth quarter drive last year? Did you watch Taylor Heineke having the best game of the season against the Colts last year? Did you watch Jake Browning have the best game of his career against the Colts last year? So, yeah, I don't know. Part of me thinks the Colts should handle Green Bay in this one, and then, I'm like, hey, you don't have to go too far back to be reminded of what can happen. I do think Gus Bradley is right, though. It could be a much different-looking offense. Jordan
just
Love
a little
is
bit.
not someone that's going to use his legs a whole lot, and theoretically that's kind of what Malik Willis' strength is, albeit we certainly haven't seen a lot of it here in the NFL. So, again, back to practice today. We'll see about Josh Downs. It'll be week 5. Today is 5 weeks out from that ankle injury. Matt Gay to Forrest Buckner on the injury report. Much more on Juju Brents coming up here in about 10 minutes. All right, inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight, it is the Fever and the Aces. Again, a 3.5-point underdog, the heavy MVP favorite. Sounds like she will play. That's Asia Wilson for the Aces. Did not play over the weekend. Her first missed game in 5 years. She is a walking double-double, has been dominant all year long. 2 of her last 5 games over 40. I think she had 28 and 29 in the Aces, 2 wins over the Fever out in Las Vegas earlier this year. And the Fever will see the Aces not only tonight, but also on Friday as well. So any hope and prayer at potentially getting home court in round 1, it is a must to sweep Las Vegas tonight and Friday. You're still going to need a good amount of help. But that is the, again, long shot goal for the Fever here as we are now into the final week and a half of the regular season.
All right, quickly, Major League Baseball. Reds winners 3-0 over the Cardinals. Did you guys happen to see this? Did you see David Bell got tossed in the 6th inning yesterday? I'm sure you two, I'm looking at you guys, are not too dialed in on Major League Baseball now the football has started. And
I'm just checking now to see if the Cubs even won. I don't even know.
Should I lie and say yes that I saw it?
Hey, the Cubs won 6-3 over the Dodgers.
Okay.
Well, here's the only reason I bring it up instead of just going through the scores and going to break and getting back to Juju Brents. The umpire in the Cardinals-Reds game missed 26 calls last night. 26 calls, the 3rd worst rate of the season. He rung Ellie De La Cruz up, and that's what got David Bell to come out and very gently get tossed. He gave us 26 calls.
Well, I watched
Ball strikes.
I watched all 27 outs, and I thought it was a very well called game.
You thought it was good.
3-0 Reds
I know.
win. I had no issue with it whatsoever.
You were good to go. I know Mark was staying up late, West Coast and the Dodgers. So Cubs win, Reds win over the Cardinals, Indianapolis Indians, their final homestand of the season.
Was it Angel Hernandez with a mustache on?
It was not.
As the umpire?
13-3, they win over Rochester, and they have a day game today, and it's going to be like 90 degrees. I left the house as 50.
Last thing I'll add, I cannot recall last time IU has been a Big Ten road favorite. Not often you win 3 Big Ten games in 3 years, and now your first Big Ten game of the year, you're a road favorite. But that's what IU is.
I love
UCLA, that is NBC primetime on Saturday. And again, Purdue, Notre Dame, CBS Saturday afternoon. The health of Riley Leonard seems to be a bit in question. Even if it's not, after watching him play 2 weeks, I would say, yeah, it's probably good to question the health of Riley Leonard considering how he has looked here so far. So a couple of, I would say marquee in-state football games here this weekend. And Ball State getting a lot of money to go play the University of Miami.
Hey, good for them. Get that 1.5 mil, whatever it is. And I don't want to curse it, but Mark, we might have Brad Nessler. Maybe on Friday.
Maybe.
It's a possibility.
We'll see.
He's on the call for Purdue Notre Dame.
Yeah,
for those
he's on the
unfamiliar.
call on CBS. So
Love that voice. Would love
it's fantastic. So we'll see if that happens or not. All right, back to the Juju Brent stuff after the break. Now what for the Colts? We'll discuss that. Stephen Holder at 8 o'clock. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Stephen Holder in 15. Get the news yesterday afternoon. Juju Brents suffered a knee injury during, I believe, MCL, a report on that during the game, is going to need surgery off the injured reserve, and it sounds like his season very much in jeopardy here the rest of the way. Andy, I hate to do this, but I think you have to mention it with so far what the story has been for Juju Brents in the NFL. Again, drafted in the second round last April. He came into the draft cycle, wrist surgery, following his final season at Kansas State. So missed the entire spring program to start his rookie year. He then had a hamstring injury in training camp, missed the first 2 games of the rookie year. He then played 5, suffers a quad injury, misses 6, returns for the final 5 games. He got hurt then in the first half of the season finale against Houston last year. Then you fast forward to this offseason. He had an ankle procedure back in the summer. He missed a couple of days due to a shoulder issue during camp. The freakish broken nose he suffered in the Arizona preseason game.
He missed 2 preseason games in 2 weeks of practice?
And now this knee injury. So if you add it all up, we're talking 8 different injuries: wrist, hammy, quad, hamstring again, ankle, shoulder, nose, MCL, 4 surgeries in the last 2 years.
And I think what, you add on top of it is, I think Ian Rappaport, who initially had the report yesterday, even put this in his tweet. I mean, the frustrating thing about it is you feel like when he's been out there and when he's played, that there are flashes that he could be a really good player for the Colts, right? I mean, don't you feel that way? That, again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. This season, for some of these defensive backs, especially the young guys, and Juju Brents is squarely one of those guys, this season was about, it was about like a guy like Anthony Richardson and his development. It was about their development too. And, you're not going to get that as he's done for the season. And the injuries that he's had, Chris Ballard cannot go into next year, and I'm saying that, I can't even believe I'm saying that. You can't go into next year thinking that he's going to play 17 games. You can't go into next year thinking he's going to play half the games. To me...
No, I think you almost have to treat him like Jelani Woods.
I would agree with the combination of last year and this year and offseason and training camps back-to-back years. It's unfortunate, but you have to be more ready than you were this season, and we're saying that, and we shouldn't have to say that about this season, let alone next season as well.
I'm going to ask Stephen Holder this in 10 minutes because I don't know the why. Why haven't they done even a little for secondary insurance? I mean, how many times do you hear the old competition? Iron sharpens iron. Endlessly you hear that from NFL people, coaches, GMs, et cetera, and yet in the back end, it has largely been ignored. And, yes, is there an element of injuries that can lead to bad luck and unfortunate nature and freak things? Certainly. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to all of a sudden believe that a 180 is going to occur for some of those players, especially at premium positions. And to me, that's what corner is. And you listen to that Juju Brents track record, you can't ignore that. You can't act like all of a sudden it's going to be a clean bill of health. And one little thing at corner, and it can really impact guys. I mean, one little nick, and you're on an island out there, and that can be a significant thing for you. So, again, that to me is probably what adds to, I think, a lot of confusion for me. If I'm going to speak for myself here, Andy, I've been clamoring for insurance, something at corner and or safety, or both, frankly. But then when I try to put myself in Ballard's shoes and see the why behind it, I have no idea.
No,
where it's coming from.
I don't either. And think about this. They're fine. You mentioned general managers and coaches and teams and everything else talking about iron sharpens iron. You're talking about competition here, right? The Colts talked about competition on their team, just not at corner.
Yeah, hell, they got 20 dudes in the trenches.
They talked about it on defensive line. It's one reason why, Latu, he's going to have to, we drafted him, 15th overall, but, there's a competition there There's a competition there. I mean, we talked about it with Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell, and that obviously changed a few weeks ago when Josh Downs, now 5 weeks ago when Josh Downs got injured. But, I mean, that was very much the conversation going into training camp was the battle at wide receiver and how would things work out on the defensive line and the battle on who would be the swing tackle, the swing offensive lineman. And I know we got a little bit of that at safety, even though I'm sorry, I always felt like it was going to be Nick Cross, and it was, and I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. But with corner, it was no competition. Well, we need to see our young guys, no competition, and that's just so different from almost every other position. Hell, even last year, Anthony Richardson had to kind of beat out Gardner Minshew to get the starting job.
Well, I would add this too. They want to see some of their young guys at corner. They also have cut, I would say, I mean, they've cut several draft picks.
Yes, they have.
At corner. And while they're holding on to the undrafted late-round picks in the trenches, where you don't need 10 defensive linemen on a game day. I mean, hell, we saw the effectiveness of 10 defensive linemen on Sunday in a game day. You certainly don't need 10 on the offensive line. At corner, a position where you do rely on more depth, certainly. And again, I think it would be wise to try for some developmental pieces there on the back end of the roster. Darius Rush is a 5th-round pick. You bail on him after last cut down. You cut both of your draft picks at corner this year after those cut downs as well. Even if you want to look at Darrell Baker Jr., who, while he did struggle certainly last season in the lineup, I thought he actually had a pretty good camp. He was cut, to keep, again, 20 guys in the trenches there. All of it just doesn't make sense. Like, there are some things that Ballard operates in a manner where I might disagree with, but I can understand where he's coming from.
Right, you can understand the logic.
I get it. This I don't get.
I know.
I don't get. To me, it was so obvious that some insurance was needed given the history track record of some of these guys in the secondary with their injuries, as unfortunate as that is. And to be already a game in the season, really the only saving grace is who you play quarterback-wise the next few weeks.
Without a doubt.
I mean, that is
listen, if this were Jordan Love this week, this would be, I think
don't you have a stretch?
I'd be besides myself.
I'm pretty sure you have a stretch at one point of like Stroud, Tua, Allen, Rodgers, like in a 5 or 6 week stretch. Like, at least it's not that. I mean, you're literally Malik Willis into Caleb Williams into, I guess, Justin Fields. I don't know. Russell Wilson, by the way, wearing full pads when he was inactive is the funniest thing I've ever seen in the NFL.
It's also very Russell Wilson. The last time I saw that's when Jameis Winston was benched. Remember that game where he was benched for getting up on the table at Florida State and saying a very profane thing? They benched him.
That, yeah.
They benched him for the game, and he came out in all pads, and there's the video of Jimbo Fisher going, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" Right? If you remember that. 2 things before we get to Stephen Holder. One of the things that has changed from other years and last year to this year with Colts fans is you can't pedal out in this particular instance. If something happens to a couple wide receivers or Anthony Richardson, that's a different conversation. But you, at this position, defensive back, safety, and corner, you cannot pedal out. And I don't care if it's Ballard or Irsay, you cannot pedal out the injury. Well, injury's the reason we didn't do ... It's not like, listen, I like Juju Brents, but it's not like, you mentioned he was Darrell Green and Ronnie Lott put together. And then the other thing, and it needs to be said, and I feel for Colts fans, but this week they can turn it around. Every Colts fan's like, Sweeney, something's going to happen. We're excited about the season, but something is going to happen. And with the Josh Downs injury and now the Juju Brents injury and the way you were outplayed and outcoached at home against the Texans, good God, you need Malik Willis on Sunday. And you hope you can beat Malik Willis on Sunday because it has been on what is a pivotal season for everybody. KB, it's just been a rough start here. I mean, it has been tough getting out of the gate for this team.
Yeah, I do think the schedule offers you some favors, though, in what, I mean, you've certainly caught a break here with, no Jordan Love. I've said it all week long. I'll probably continue to say it, given that Malik Willis has been a Packer for 15 days now. I don't think there's a steeper drop-off from starting quarterback to backup in the league than Love to Willis. I guess it will be a different-looking Green Bay offense, but I do actually think the Colts have done a decent job at times in defending some of these, the kind of dual-threat quarterbacks, but still,
it's not good.
it just falls into the can't lose on Sunday category.
I know.
Then you're putting a whole bunch of pressure on yourself here early in the season, which I guess is kind of par for the course with the Colts.
All right, coming up, hour number 2, his thoughts on the Juju Brents injury, plus the task at hand Sunday in Green Bay. ESPN Stephen Holder, he joins us next. Appreciate you hanging out with us. 8 o'clock hour around the corner. Wake up call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, I didn't even think about this till right now. Obviously, a ton of Colts stuff to get to with our next guest, Stephen Holder. Stephen, if I'm looking at this college football schedule correct this weekend, we've got a house divided in the front row of the Colts media room. It's you against Mike Chappell Saturday afternoon at 3:30.
That's a fair point. I did not occur to me. Did not occur to me. Look, I like my chances.
Yeah, that's probably an accurate statement. We'll see how many points Mike Chappell would like today, and I think a friendly wager between your Hurricanes and the Ball State Cardinals. That's coming up on Saturday. Obviously, a lot of Colts items to get to, and I want to start here on Juju Brents. I said to Andy in the first hour, obviously I think it's pretty universal, people clamoring for more secondary depth really throughout the offseason. But I want to ask you, why do you think Chris Ballard didn't do that? Again, shooting for the moon and Justin Simmons or, drafting a corner at 15 overall, whatever. Those are obviously big swings. But why don't you think we saw the little stuff, like little insurance in the secondary? That, to me, is where I sit here and think, boy, for someone that preaches competition all throughout his roster, it is head-scratching to me why there wasn't that, why that didn't happen in the secondary.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I think there are some possible answers, but I don't think it necessarily answers the question completely. Like, for example, there is certainly like a fundamental philosophy here at work, and that philosophy is that the investment is never going to be on the back end with Chris Ballard on defense. That's just never going to happen. It has not happened, and it likely or generally won't happen. There's some exceptions, Stephon Gilmore for a year, et cetera, but generally it's not going to be the case. And I think in large part because philosophically he believes in investing up front, which is fine in and of itself. But I also think the counter argument to that is it doesn't mean that you have to be this bare bones. And that's where I kind of have an issue. I don't have an issue with the philosophy in general, right? I mean, the trenches do win in the NFL. In fact, the Colts' failure to win in the trenches is what got them beat on Sunday. Okay? So they're actually right about that. But again, it does not mean all or nothing. You can still have some depth. And so, for example, we're talking about Juju Brents, and I don't want to make Juju Brents out to be like the second coming of Deion Sanders. He ain't so far, okay, right? We don't even know what he is because he hasn't played enough because he's been hurt. But that's the point. He can't be your best hope because, or at least not have much behind him. He has been hurt a lot, and you don't know much about him. And so you've left yourself in a really precarious situation. So, no one should be surprised by this, that the Juju Brents is hurt. I hate it for him. I really like him. I'm optimistic that he's a good player, but I have no idea, and neither do the Colts. And there's no evidence that he can stay healthy. So I just think from that perspective, I get the frustration, and they've put themselves in a tough spot. It's not about Juju and his ability. It's more so about just the lack of overall depth and options now at that position. So Chris Lamons now replaces him on the active roster, even though they did work some guys out. But I don't see a move there being imminent either, given the Chris Lamons promotion from the practice squad.
One thing on the Lamons front, and again, with the practice squad, they could call somebody up with that. But Lamons, I've always thought of, Stephen, as more of a slot guy. Do you think we could look at Kenny Moore moving to the outside with this move? And we know Kenny plays outside when they're in their base defense, 2 corners. When they go to nickel, 3 corners, that's when Kenny slides inside. And they were a nickel for, a huge percentage on Sunday. Do you think there's any way we could see Kenny outside with this move, or do you still view it as, no, they want to keep Kenny where he's best at and find a new outside corner, which is where Juju was primarily playing?
I mean, look, there's no question that Kenny's best spot is in the nickel. It's the place he is most impactful. But I think everything has to be on the table because the funny thing is they have more options at slot corner than they do outside corner. I think Womack, who was claimed from the 49ers, Samuel Womack, a couple weeks ago, I think his experience has largely been in the slot
Correct.
too, or at least
Yep.
a lot of it. So, you're talking about two slot options there. Micah Abraham, is a guy that played in the slot for them. So I don't know. I do kind of wonder whether they'll at least discuss it. You have to at least consider everything, I think, because that's how down to the bone I feel like they are at corner right now.
Stephen Holder with us, obviously talking Colts. We'll get to the Packer game coming up on Sunday, but the Juju Brents injury continues to be on the forefront. Let's talk about him as a player. 9 games last year. Me and KB added it up. 8 injuries now in the NFL. Missed time, this year in training camp. Obviously injured game 1 and now probably done for the season. Do they go into next year with Juju Brents almost treating him like Jelani Woods, that if they get something from him, that's great? He's still a very young player, but in 2 years you've seen nothing but an injured player, and a good player, but an injured player nonetheless.
Yeah, I do think that he'll certainly get a good look next year, but your standing has to take a hit just because you haven't proven to be durable. You can't count on him. I hate to put it so bluntly, but you just can't. You just can't. And that's the problem with injury-prone players, is particularly ones who have upside as players like this kid. You want to, at some point, let yourself believe, right, this guy can help us. And then what if you come to depend on that player and they prove to still be not durable? Then it gets you in a spot where, like, you feel like you made a mistake counting on them, right? So I don't know. It puts them in a tough spot, and how to contextualize what to do with Brents next year. And I don't know that answer. I think you have to proceed like that's a position you have to address, regardless of whether he's here or not. You almost have to, act like you assume the worst, because if you don't and he gets hurt again, then that makes you an idiot. I hate to say it. At this point, he's injury prone. I don't know how else to put it. This is not a guy who I thought Anthony Richardson last year maybe had a couple bad breaks, like a concussion, for example. Like, that's something that can happen to anybody. The shoulder, whatever. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know. I don't think he certainly doesn't have as bad a history. Look, we have concerns about Anthony Richardson, but this is like another level, man. This is a completely other level of injury prone that I've rarely seen. So I don't think you can remove that from the situation when you're evaluating him going into 2025.
Yeah, beyond unfortunate, but the reality is 8 injuries and 4 surgeries in the last year and a half for
Unbelievable.
Juju Brents. Stephen Holder, ESPN, with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Stephen, I want to go back to Sunday. I'm still in awe over the Richardson to Pierce throw, and I who knows? I probably watched it 24 times at this point. Things that stand out to me about the throw, the more I watch it, I probably forget that he's rolling to his left on the throw. And again, this is after he slips, and yet the throw goes from light to shadow, back to the light, back into the shadow. And honestly, we probably should be giving more credit to Alec Pierce for locating that ball the whole time and still running underneath it in stride and making that catch. Just what was your audible reaction? I know you sit a little bit further down from me in the press box when you saw that throw, and now you've watched it, I'm sure, many times back.
Stunning. Just stunning. I think, let me ask you this. Do you think you'll see a more stunning throw in 2024?
No.
Only Mahomes could probably give us that, right?
It's funny because Shane Steichen brought up the Mahomes throw to Tyreek Hill in a 2020 game against the Chargers, and I went back and watched that play, and it's an unbelievable play by Mahomes. Rolling to his right, takes a hit, throws it in stride to Tyreek Hill, 40, 50 yards down the field. I mean, it's exactly vintage Mahomes to Hill. But, if I'm really going to pick one of the two throws, I'd pick Richardson's. I mean, he slips, he rolls to his left, he throws it further. It's just no. I don't think. I mean, maybe time and score within a game. A fourth down, final 2 minutes, something like that. But if you're
a bigger moment,
right. Bigger moment, yes. Better pure throw, no.
No, I mean, it looked like the throws he made at the combine, which we kind of laughed off when he did it because the thinking then was like, okay, like that's amazing, but like that's never going to happen in the game. I remember that conversation because there was a lot of talk about like, oh, well, he's a combine warrior, underwear Olympics. And he goes out there and he makes these towering throws. I was in the building that day when he worked out at Lucas Oil at the combine, and it was oohs and ahs from the crowd, right? Rightfully so. But there was a counterpoint by many, and particularly us in the media, who were like, okay, that's fine, but like that's not a realistic football situation. You don't make throws like that in the game. Well, that's no longer true because we saw it. So I don't know, man. I've covered football a long time. We've all watched the game a long time. I don't know if I've ever seen a throw like that. I really don't know that I have. And the other thing, you mentioned Pierce and his concentration on that play. I want to also point out something. If you haven't seen this, I actually posted the clip on my Twitter feed if you want to look at it, I think a couple of days ago. Anyhow, look at his route on the All-22 video that I posted. Look at his route. Alec Pierce's route is not only that he runs by the defense, which is impressive.
Runs by Derek Stingley Jr.
Yes, absolutely, right. A really good player. He also has a really subtle move that I think really gets him open there, that it shows his route running ability, because we think about him as this straight line guy, and a lot of his routes are sort of deeper, clear out routes. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to be a skilled route runner. You're not just out there running past people. It's not, it's not a 100-meter dash. You still got to be a route runner. And he runs a very impressive route there. I would also add that A.D. Mitchell, I thought, had a couple of really impressive routes in that game that will go unnoticed because he didn't have the production. But A.D. Mitchell did his job in that game, and he's going to be a good player.
Stephen Holder, ESPN.com with us. Stephen, I want to ask about the run defense. I was going to ask about the run defense, but then you mentioned A.D. Mitchell. And yesterday, I think his name is Mike Renner, who works with Pro Football Focus. He was kind of breaking down on film some of the A.D. Mitchell stuff, and is like, listen, this guy could have had 4 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the game. I mean, very easily. Do you think, sometimes you can hide a player, and then sometimes you can't hide a player. And even though he didn't do much, he had, 1 catch for 2 or 3 yards, do you think that the word is out watching film on what A.D. Mitchell can do, even though his stats are little to nothing? Or do you think the Colts got away with it for another week?
No, I think the Packers saw that.
Yeah, I think so,
they
too.
Had to have seen it. Yeah. There's no way you watch that film and you don't come away thinking, oh, boy, this guy's a problem. Look, the play where I think he also now it wasn't Stingley on the illegal contact, was another defender. But the point is, if you look at that play, he runs by him. I mean, he gets by him with a good move. Okay, he runs a great route there,
yep.
and puts a move on the defender, and to the point where all he can do is grab him. And thank God he did for the Texans' sake, because I think that did throw off the timing ever so slightly. It may have been enough without that grab. It may have been enough for AD to go run up under that ball and possibly score, or at least have a pretty big gain. So I think 2 things are apparent watching that film. The Colts are going to take huge shots this year, huge shots, which I love, because this game goes to show you that you can have overall a pretty pedestrian passing performance. Okay, 9 for 19 ain't going to get it most days, but when you have big plays, it compensates for the other stuff, and it puts you in the game. Okay, no matter what else you have, no matter what other shortcomings you have. So that's the first thing. And then number 2, it showed, I thought, that A.D. Mitchell is going to be a factor. One other point I'll make real quick, just on the shot plays. Anthony Richardson, I have a story coming out this week. I don't know if they posted it yet, but Anthony Richardson's air yard numbers in that game, astounding. I believe it's over 16 yards per attempt in air yards. No one in the NFL, well, let's put it this way. Let me put that in context. 16 yards per attempt in air yards, right? That meaning point A to B, where he released the ball, where the ball landed. The NFL average, okay, the league average for quarterbacks in 2023 was 7.5. Okay, 7.5. So this guy is more than 100% higher than the league average last year in that one game, small sample size, but it shows you that's the kind of aggressive passing game we could be looking at. Whether the completion percentage is what it should be, I don't know down the road. But if you make those big plays, it matters a lot less.
Next Gen Stats had this. I actually saved this from Twitter. This is kind of one of the stats you were talking about. Stephen Holder with us. Anthony Richardson, 60-yard touchdown pass to Alec Pierce, traveled 65.3 yards in the air. That's the third longest completion in the Next Gen Stats era. And then I also don't know, the Colts released last night. KB, I don't know if you've seen this. Joe Flacco talking to Anthony after the play. And it's like, I don't think I've ever seen a ball thrown further. That's what Joe Flacco said. Flacco's been around for 15 years. And Flacco himself
has chucked a few in
no
this
doubt.
day.
He said game winners. You think of the big-time throws he's had. Last one for me, and Stephen Holder from ESPN with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. The run defense, I mean, that was obviously the bad. After the game, Zaire Franklin kind of said something, and then yesterday, Gus Bradley, defensive coordinator as well, Stephen, said, well, a little bit of it was scheme. We were so worried about CJ and getting to him that we just figured we would stop the run, right? Because that's what we're good at. And I think Gus said, we'll stop the run on our way to getting to the quarterback. Is there validity to that, and does that ease maybe our angst about how that defensive front seven played against the run on Sunday?
No, it's absolutely valid. Now, I don't want to grant them the excuse, okay? Let me be clear. I'm not saying it's okay. What I am saying is that I think we should heed what he's saying. And there's a couple of plays that I noticed in watching the end zone angle where I actually see the evidence of what Gus Bradley's talking about, because a lot of times when you're playing the run specifically, you kind of hold your ground in the gaps. And there were some instances where these guys were just shooting off the ball and trying to penetrate. That's not really run defense, right? So I do think there's something to what he's saying. Now, they have to reevaluate whether that makes sense. And particularly in a game like they're going to have this weekend, I mean, it should be really run defense first. I mean, Josh Jacobs can hurt you if you don't stand your ground there, and you're going to have a passing game that should be limited without Jordan Love, to be completely frank. So I think you'll see the opposite game plan from the defense this week. So time will tell whether Gus Bradley is proven right. I give him a little benefit of the doubt because that's the one area they have been very consistent, which is stopping the run for several years now. I mean, they've been consistent with that under both Matt Eberflus and currently their current system. So I do give them a little benefit of the doubt, but it's just a really bad miscalculation, frankly, by the game planning.
Stephen will end with this, and as always, thank you for the time. Stephen Holder, ESPN, with us. I think this was, probably weeks, maybe even months ago, but I think at one point you had mentioned with us the Colts looked into some trade potentials for corners, and correct me if I'm wrong on that. Do you think, if anything, this Juju Brents move would start to bring that a little bit more to the surface?
Well, to be clear, they were approached with a trade that they declined.
Got it.
That's what ended up happening. Okay. A veteran corner. So, it actually makes the question still valid, I guess, though, because now the situation has changed. So I do think they will continue to look at options at that position. I don't think that we have necessarily seen the last move at cornerback, because I think they have to continue to evaluate where they are. In fact, that's what I was told, is that they will continue to evaluate things, and it's fluid. So I don't know if that means something happens today or tomorrow. I don't know. I'm not saying that, but I do think the situation is fluid, and that, things are possible. Other moves are possible, whether they be a trade, whether it's snatching somebody off a practice squad somewhere, who knows? But I think it's fluid for sure.
Ball State, Miami, a rich history in that one. That's coming up.
Come on,
Saturday
the U
at 3:30.
Come on.
Mike Chappell, Stephen Holder, house divided in the front row of the Colts media room coming up.
Like I said, I like my chances.
Yeah, well, I felt the same way about my Irish last week. Stephen,
Fair enough.
As always, thank you, sir.
See you guys.
Stephen Holder, Payless Liquors Hotline. Couple things to note from that convo. One, going back to the Richardson throw, the miss and the hypotheticals are now on film. I always thought that those types of balls he threw on Sunday, I'm like, I know that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
When are we going to see it, though, in games? Because if you go back to last season.
We didn't see it, no.
And I don't even think we saw many attempts of it. Now, you've not only attempted those balls, you've completed them. And that strikes fear into Jeff Hafley and future defensive coordinators from here on out. So now how do they defend that? Because we know how NFL teams largely operate. They do not want any part of giving up those plays. And I think teams are going to say, we don't believe Anthony Richardson can methodically move his way down the field. Too much inaccuracy in a 10-play drive. We can stop that. We can't stop the 4-play.
It's a good point.
500 ball. So how do teams defend the Colts now that the hypothetical myths have now been put onto actual film? That's my Richardson thought. Going back to the Gus Bradley question you asked him, I think there is some validity to, yes, we thought that pressuring C.J. Stroud was more of a heightened sense of urgency than it was defending Joe Mixon. But where I can't get behind that sort of thought was in the fourth quarter on Sunday. Because at that point of the game, C.J. Stroud torching you through the air was largely over. I think Stroud attempted 5 passes in the fourth quarter. I mean, that part of the game was done. Sure, you had a 3rd and 11 where they had to throw it, things like that. But that was over. It got to the point where they were 4-minute offense. They were saying, how do we bleed the clock on the ground? And the Colts dressed 10 defensive linemen for a reason. When the fourth quarter rolls around, our guys are going to be fresh. Our guys are going to be ready to go up front. And we can outlast your O-line. We can outplay your O-line, however you want to describe it. And they torched you the most on the ground in the fourth quarter. I think Bradley mentioned yesterday 80 rushing yards in the fourth quarter. I mean, Mixon,
it's staggering.
Mixon looked fresh as a daisy.
I know. It's staggering.
And so that is where I would push back on they were, running by the offensive linemen to get after the old quarterback. I mean, that to me is where I would disagree on that.
Yeah, I like what Steven said. There's probably some validity to it, but it's also bad game planning. And I'll say this, Joe Mixon he's a better running back than Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce. There's also that. Is he, is Joe Mixon a Hall of Famer? Is he a Christian McCaffrey? Is he a Jonathan Taylor? I mean, I understand Joe Mixon is a good player. He's not a great player, but he is a better player. He is a huge upgrade to what they had last year. And Gus Bradley yesterday mentioned it a couple different times in his press conference. He wasn't making an excuse. And for fans that didn't hear it, he was just saying a little part of it was we were so worried about affecting C.J. Stroud's timing and getting to him and sacking him and hurrying him and hitting him, which, by the way, for the most part, they did a pretty damn good job at that. That part of the defensive line and front seven did a good job. But the other side, the running of the football, is something the Texans improved in the offseason, and they did it in a way that the Colts do not want to do it, and that's in free agency. The other thing you mentioned, or two other things quickly before a morning check down. I mentioned the stat that it was the 3rd longest ball that was thrown in the next-gen stats era. We mentioned it there with Stephen Holder. Our guy Scotty J. Baker Mayfield had one that was longer than Anthony Richardson in 2021. And then oddly enough, in 2022 is P.J. Walker. So that's an odd, because I figured Scotty would know who the other
Shout
two
out.
were.
Colts preseason legend, P.J. Walker.
P.J. Walker was not a name that I was thinking was going to be out there. And then last thing, he mentions the throws, Anthony, with the throws at the combine and how, we look at that and we say, that's fine at the combine, do it in a real game. And of course, Sunday he went out and did it in a real game. I know it's just a few years old, but you know who helped ruin that for us? Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson made a bunch of those throws. I don't know if you remember this at all, like 3-4 years ago at his pro day. He made a bunch of throws that looked like Mahomes or some of the stuff that AR did. And how's Zach Wilson doing? Besides making out with moms. How's he doing?
You know what? For a lot of people, that's a successful life.
Isn't he? I think he's engaged, and he's engaged to, I believe, a young lady that's his age.
So not a mom?
Not. I know where you're going to go there. You stopped yourself, and I appreciate
Was there an
that.
acronym for that?
I think there is. Oh,
probably withhold
Zach
from that.
Wilson.
SW chimes in here. He was curious about Bob Kravitz's comments on Jim Irsay yesterday with John. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but he's paraphrasing a little bit here. Said Irsay's handcuffing Ballard on spending. Doesn't think he's committed to contending anymore. I think both are on the same page when it comes to a lot of the very frugal spending. I mean, the Colts are sitting on at this point, I guess after draft picks, 15, 20 million. And, some of it is, yes, a lack of high-end spending. But I'll go back to something I've said certainly for the first 90 minutes today and throughout the offseason. Again, I'm not asking you to break the bank and all of a sudden roll out the red carpet and you brought up Stephon Gilmore earlier. There are a lot of moves that can happen that are not 10, 12 million per year. Look at what they've done at corner and safety this offseason. They have done nothing. Not 1, not 2 million, not 3 million. The only things they did were a 5th and a 6th round pick and Jalen Simpson and Micah Abraham, and both got cut 2 weeks ago. I mean, that is it. So, again, if Irsay, has this grand philosophy of, boy, I love the frugal nature of my GM and I want to sit on all this cash and all the, whatever, 15, 20 million going into a season. Is there some validity to that? That there probably is, but I also think Ballard is gung-ho on no. I'm not even going to dip my toes into that because where did he spend? He spent with Raekwon Davis 2 years and $14 million, and I would ask, is $7 million annually for a backup defensive tackle?
You played 15 snaps
who's
on
play,
Sunday?
24 snaps a game at best? Is that where your money should be allocated? To me, premium positions matter, and on the back end, I look at that as having some insurance there when you're oft injured at that position as where that money should be.
And that unused salary cap space, it doesn't roll over to 2025. It's either you use it or you lose it. Like it doesn't get rolled over to next season. We have this influx of cash that we didn't use. No. You got 20 million. Use some of it.
KB, I'm with you on this one. That it's not like we were yelling and screaming that they had to go out and get every Pro Bowler out there in the secondary.
No, this is not.
A couple guys.
That is unrealistic.
Yeah, a couple guys that leave you with options. I mean,
Mike Mitchell,
exactly.
Mike Adams, Rodney McLeod, TJ Carey, Pierre Desir. The Colts have found insurance policies in the secondary that over the course of a 17-game season have been needed and have been helpful.
Juju Brents should not be injured, and we should not be using the word bleak. I'm sorry, especially this early in the season. And everyone can agree with that. Whether you like Ballard or not, 100% of people can agree with that today.
It's been one game.
You get one bet, boys. Each of you get one bet.
All right, let's go.
IU -3 at UCLA, Notre Dame -10 at Purdue, Miami -36.5 hosting Ball State. You get one bet. Which in-state program are you taking? You take an IU in the 3.
Man.
You like Purdue with the 10 at home. You think Notre Dame bounces back -10.
All right, let's
or
move.
you getting 5 touchdowns with Ball State at the U.
Here's the funny thing. I had to look at myself in the mirror yesterday and this morning, and I had to look at myself and say, am I going to back Notre Dame -10 because I poo-pooed away Purdue yesterday? Am I going to plant my flag on that pathetic offense of Notre Dame that they're going to bounce back and play great against Purdue? I'm throwing Notre Dame out. I hate to say it. Boy, Miami always seems to kind of be slow. I'm going to go Indiana -3. How does that sound? Indiana -3.
I think that's where I'm going too.
Let's go,
Yeah.
Signetti.
When's the last time?
Never.
And please, someone out there look this up. I'm not a degenerate enough to look it up. When's the last time IU's been favored in a road Big Ten game?
Well, we need Hammer to figure that out for Thursday. Hammer, there's your homework.
And
figure
I
it
asked
out.
the question. I'm like, you know what? They probably were like a 1-point favorite in the bucket game a few years, or like at Northwestern,
probably.
they might have been a 1-point favorite. It just seems like it's been a while. There's no way they've been. What are they? A 3-point favorite? I said
It's a field goal favorite.
That's
yeah.
got to be the biggest road favorite. They've won 3 Big Ten games in 3 years.
I mean, I want to go Miami. I'm so scared. Mario Cristobal, what you saw against NIU, Mario Cristobal's done a few times at Miami, and I know
I'm
they're
taking
better
Ball State.
quarterback.
Give me the 36.5.
There you go. I got no problem with that. Let that number get bet up. Let the Saturday morning
Come on,
bettors
Mike New.
get that up to 40 and a half, and then go ahead and sneak in and take Ball State at the last second. That's what you do.
Continue our Colts conversation, the one and only Lin Dunn in a half hour. Let's go ahead and check it down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
Obviously, the Juju Brents conversation, knee injury done probably for the season. Definitely the next 4 games. We'll see if he comes back in December. So that's dominated the conversation really since about 4 o'clock yesterday. Now, yesterday, before the news came out, defensive coordinator Gus Bradley did meet with the media. One quote that's working its way around. I know Bob Kravitz asked it. I see the Indy Star talking about it as well this morning. Are you on the hot seat? Do you feel you're operating being on the hot seat? That was asked to Gus Bradley yesterday. Here's what he had to say.
I don't know if I look at it and go, oh boy, I wonder if I'm on the hot seat. I think you always feel like that. I think you want to do what's best for the fans, the organization, the players, the team. You're just always in that competitive mindset because you're competitive and you're out there trying to put your players with the players that you have in the best position to make plays. And that's really your mindset going into it. So, I know that we have a good defense, and I really like our guys. It's a great group, great guys to work with, and they're competitive. And, we just got to play at a higher level. And, to give up that many yards rushing in a game like that, is unacceptable.
Again, Colts back to practice today. Non-Juju Brents injury news. If Josh Downs gives it a go today, it would be his first practice in 5 weeks. Sounded like some optimism about Matt Gay kicking this weekend. Needs to handle the full game day workload, not just, trot out there for an extra point or 2. So that'll be something to watch as the Colts are outdoors coming up on Sunday. And then DeForest Buckner. They did work out some defensive tackles earlier this week. Didn't bring anybody in, though. Any pitch count for Buckner with that back injury. Those are some items to watch on the injury list for this week. All right, tonight inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse, 3.5-point underdog, the Indiana Fever taking on the Las Vegas Aces. First time all year, Asia Wilson has been inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Sounds like she is healthy after she missed a game over the weekend. She is your MVP this season. Yes, Caitlin Clark. I've said if this was a Heisman Trophy ceremony, Caitlin Clark would be in the front row. She'd be sitting in one of those seats.
Yes,
but
she
Asia
would.
Wilson is your winner for that. She's been incredible all year long. How the Fever handle her will certainly be a storyline to watch. For the Fever to get home court, they really need to win their last 4 and still get some help. Now, the team that is at that final home court spot are the Aces. You'll play them tonight. You'll play them Friday, but still, you're several games back of them. So that, I guess, is what you're playing for here down the stretch. Caitlin Clark, by the way, takes home her 3rd straight Eastern Conference Player of the Week award yesterday. That was announced.
Yeah, it's pretty good for her. Quickly, Major League Baseball, Reds 3-0 over the Cardinals there. David Bell got tossed. Didn't matter. The Reds won. Congratulations to KB. Cubs 6-3 over the Dodgers. Mark Dykton found that out at 8 o'clock. I did not stay up for that game. His Cubs beat the Dodgers.
I watched Beetlejuice.
6-3 there. Okay, I like that. Indianapolis Indians 13-3 over Rochester. You got anything else?
Yeah, thank you to Thad here. He chimes in. I think the last time IU was favored on the road in the Big Ten was at Michigan State in 2020. I should give more credit to that Tom Allen 2020 season.
That's got to be it.
That's the skewy one. That's the one if you had the 12-team playoff, wouldn't IU have gotten in?
Oh, goodness.
I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at the rankings.
That season is going to be the answer to many IU football trivia questions, and it got Tom Allen a boatload of money from Indiana.
Did you mention Kyle Larson?
I did not mention Kyle Larson.
Back
you go ahead.
In the 500 here for a second year. I think we kind of felt this was going to happen, certainly, but pen to paper on that. Again, last year started 5th. Incredible qualifying run by Kyle Larson. Finished 18th in the race. As he mentioned to us pre-race, he was worried about pit stops and restarts. Those were the 2 issues that he did run into on race day, but that will be a great storyline. So much pomp and circumstance around Kyle Larson pre-race. I thought he handled it really, really well. And I think there is some genuine, not only interest from him in wanting to be a part of this race, but I think some genuine, wait a minute, he is a legit candidate
sure.
to win this race.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Great to see that news item as we look ahead to the 500 coming up next May.
All right, Fever GM Lin Dunn going to join us at 9 o'clock. But coming up next, KB, I have a question for you as it pertains to Irsay and Ballard. We kind of brought it up there, and obviously all the Juju Brents stuff as well, as he basically done for the season. Appreciate you hanging out with us. It's a Hump Day Wednesday right here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
The one and only Lin Dunn. She's going to join us coming up here in 20, your final weekday day game of the year over at Victory Field today, 1:35, first pitch on that one. So looks to be a nice day out there if you're able to check out, did I say the Fever? I meant the Indians. the Indians in that one. I don't know. Were the Fever at the game?
Fever
last
were
night?
there
Did you see that?
yesterday, yeah.
Oh, is that it?
Uh-huh.
Well, they played some games in the middle of the day. Played one or two.
Yeah, they did have a noon tip, right?
Yeah.
We were there for that one.
I know.
It'll be 7 o'clock tonight for the Fever. That is WTHR's sister station where you can check them out. A couple other Colts items to note here. Again, their first practice of the week coming up later today. As we mentioned earlier, it'll be Greg Olson on the call. Fox coming up Sunday at 1 o'clock. Malik Willis looks to be the starter here for the Packers coming up on Sunday. I think one thing that I'd like to see a little bit more of, Andy, last year I brought up, P.J. Walker, fourth quarter drive, puts the dagger in you, poor officiating there late. Jake Browning had the best game of his NFL season against the Colts last year, or I should say career. Taylor Heineke, best game of his NFL season last year against the Colts. So these dudes have done it to you before. I think what I walked away from those games saying the Colts missed out on, when these dudes get in the game, backup quarterbacks, I don't know if you guys operate this way, but when I see backup quarterbacks, I go to my fantasy free agent list and I go pick up those defenses.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yep.
They're getting the start.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, the Colts defense.
Because they're going to force turnovers.
You're damn right.
2 turnovers against those 3 quarterbacks last year for the Colts in 182 snaps. Walker, Browning, Heineke, you only got 2 turnovers in 182 snaps. To me, that number should be much higher
without
when you're
a doubt.
facing those guys. To me, these should be multi-turnover games. So, is Willis going to have a moment or two, especially where his legs kind of show off? Sure. But you got to put him into some situations where he's turning the ball over.
I think I would feel, listen, I have been on the record that I don't think Malik Willis is a good quarterback. I'm not sure he's a backup quarterback. I think the difference between he and a guy like Jordan Love is substantial. I could almost, if this was a move that was made last season or in the offseason, Willis going to Green Bay, listen, I don't mind saying it. Mark, I know you don't like it. I trust the Packers when it comes to drafting and developing a quarterback. I'm not sure I agree with everything that they do, but when it comes to the quarterback position, they have proven that they kind of know what's going on. So they must think that they could make Malik Willis a viable option at backup quarterback and that he could be an actual playable guy in the league. Not something that I thought that he has been with the Tennessee Titans. Willis hasn't been in Green Bay long enough.
15 days.
He's been there 15 days. So a couple weeks, he hasn't had time to kind of get that good quarterback mojo that you get in Green Bay. I mean, I'll ask the question. I think we all probably have the same answer. I am not expecting, and are you expecting the Colts to repeat with backup quarterbacks what they did last season? If the Colts defense isn't dominant in this game, and it's all truly about, well, you just need to get the win and move on. I do believe that. But if they're struggling on the defensive side of the ball, with what we saw against the Texans on Sunday in Malik Willis, it's going to be hard to come. It's going to be possible for us to come in here on Monday and have any excuse for the defense. I mean, they have no excuse on Sunday not to be, in my opinion, dominant. And I say that Green Bay, and I think this is what makes it difficult. Green Bay has a good running game. They have a really good running back in Josh Jacobs. And then we know that wide receiving core is one of the better young wide receiving cores. Jaden Reed, could be like the next Tyreek Hill type player. I just cannot imagine that Malik Willis is going to be able to get those guys the ball. I just can't. In any world, if guys like Kenny Moore and Jalen Jones, just the front seven, these guys have to make this an impossible task. Malik Willis is just 5 of 16, 6 of 10. He's got no numbers in the NFL that say he should complete 50% of his passes on Sunday.
Yeah, I do think Green Bay, and you kind of pointed out there, Andy, I do think Green Bay's got pretty good balance on each side of the ball. Like, I don't know if they have, all-pro groups anywhere, but I think they're pretty solid everywhere. Jair Alexander in that secondary, Xavier McKinney. Those are certainly a couple household names.
Yeah, McKinney had an interception week 1.
Their front has definitely had moments. You look at that wideout core. I know it's a lot of people that are like, wait, I feel like I've heard that name, but I don't even know who he plays for. That's kind of what their wideout group is. But they're a pretty athletic bunch that can make some plays. And then Josh Jacobs, I would say, is much more in his prime. than Joe Mixon if you were going to ask me that question, 10 days ago. So that to me, I think is a little bit of like, yes, I don't think Willis is equipped to do anything significant to you for 60 minutes, but I do think Green Bay is a pretty balanced team that, you would think is going to be pretty pissed off after week 1 for their home opener.
I know.
Does that matter at all?
I know.
How much does that matter you factor in?
You're asking a good question.
Willis's ineptness, that I think are all kind of fair items. One kind of wild note from the Colts in week 1, and I know this was an NFL storyline, and if I'm not mistaken, Green Bay opted to kick the ball short on their kickoffs in week 1, so the Colts should expect some returns here coming up on Sunday. The Colts had 4 kick returns on Sunday. They had 9 all of last season. They had
unbelievable.
4 on Sunday.
I know.
They're by the end of the first quarter on Sunday, they could be beyond halfway to their season total of kick returns. So you saw 2 different strategies on Sunday. Houston said, we're kicking it short. We think our coverage team can outperform the Colts blocking team in the kick return game. And for the most part, I think Houston did win that battle. One thing to note is the Colts had a rookie kicker. I totally understand the thinking of Spencer Schrader, just kick it as far as you can.
Right.
If you mess with starting to kind of place the ball in this corner, place the ball in that corner, one ball bounces and goes out of bounds, and all of a sudden C.J. Stroud's starting at the 40-yard line, and you look like an idiot. With Matt Gay kicking, which could happen on Sunday, do we see the Colts play a little bit more of the, hey, let's sneak 5-8 yards here and there? We feel like our crazies on special teams, Trevor Denbo, Shagun Alubi, those guys, we feel like they can make some plays. So, again, 4 kick returns for the Colts, which it sounds like a lot when you bring up last year's total.
I know it's a Wednesday. We'll have some time. Today will matter, and then obviously Thursday and Friday we'll talk. I know the media will meet with Shane Steichen before practice today. Your feeling on Matt Gay is that he does have a chance on Sunday,
Seemed like
much
it.
better than maybe Josh Downs?
I was down on the field right as inactives were being announced on Sunday, and Matt Gay was, I think, certainly trying. He was talking to very important people on the field pregame, people that make those decisions on inactives. And if you don't have a prayer, you're nowhere near those conversations.
Right.
So I think it was close. Brian Mason, the special teams coordinator, mentioned yesterday he's got to prove this week he can handle the full kicking day workload. At first I heard that and I'm like, boy, that sounds like I don't know. It sounds like a lot to describe, but then I'm thinking to myself,
you wanted to make fun of it because it's a kicker.
Well, yeah,
That's where you're going
I guess
with it. Yeah.
There's some truth to that.
Oh, he's kicking.
But then part of me thought to myself, well, if Matt Gay aggravates the hernia on the first kick of the game,
now what?
Now you're in scramble mode. Now you're like, wait a minute, who is Flacco holding? Is Ellinger holding? Is Rigoberto Sanchez, kicking field goals? So it does kind of make sense. But yeah, it seems. I thought Matt Gay. Right now, if you made me ask on a Wednesday, Matt Gay and Josh Downs, I would think to myself, boy, they both have a legit chance. It's vital for Josh Downs probably to practice today, considering he hasn't done it in 5 weeks. But yeah, I'd say right now you could be looking at those 2 in the lineup, but we'll see how it plays out.
Fever GM Lin Dunn, she joins us in 10 minutes. We'll take a break, come back, wrap up hour number 2. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Lin Dunn going to join us in a few Fever and Aces tonight. I would say the two best players in the WNBA facing off tonight inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Did you see my guy Riley Leonard's banged up?
Oh, you and Riley Leonard. This is not a good marriage. It's not a good relationship. It's
not healthy at all.
It's not healthy for the kids, and the kids being me and Mark Dykton in this instance.
Yep, no, not good at all.
So what happened? He stunk it up, so now he's injured.
Labrum injury, left shoulder, non-throwing.
Let's go, Purdue.
Some might argue the right shoulder has been hurt. I would certainly argue that. Yeah, I mean, the dude he runs like he's Josh Allen. No shock here that he's injured. So, yeah, I guess he got hurt against Northern Illinois.
2 weeks into the season. He was injured last year as well. The two things I had, what did you make of PGA and Live meeting? No Tiger Woods involved? Do you care? I mean, I know you care.
Yeah, just get me to some finality. And
I feel like it's been 2 years.
I mean,
we still don't have an answer on anything.
It has been 2 years.
I will say
it's been
some
longer.
Tone deafness with meeting with the Saudis the eve of 9/11 is probably a little alive and well there in New York City there. But yes, just give me to some finality.
And then the other thing I had, Mark, I thought of you last night. You know what?
Thank you.
Well, you know what I did? We got home from our night out, the sports court, which was fantastic. And I get home, and it's a nice temperature. And I notice, I don't know what time it is, 6, 7 o'clock, whatever it is. I noticed the sun going down, and I'm thinking, Mark Dykton mentioned yesterday on the show, you mentioned it's our final day. Last night was our final time that of the summer, now going into fall, our final time where the sun set after 8 p.m., right? So you know what I did? I stayed outside until that damn sun went down.
Look at you.
Did you play taps?
I did.
Beautiful Irvington sunset.
I'm going to miss you.
The sirens in the background and the sun going down.
Now, again,
that's fantastic.
I've changed my tune. I used to weep. I used to be exactly what Mark is saying.
Like me.
Yeah,
you were me.
100%. There goes 3 holes of golf you could get in late when you get off work at Plum Creek Golf Course. Not anymore. Anything to make Rosie be like, oh, the sun's going down. It's time for bed.
Yeah, we had that. Little Gas is doing this thing now where he doesn't want to eat during the day. He wants to eat at night.
Oh,
that's what he
like
wants.
son.
Yeah, that's what he wants all the
little midnight snack.
Yeah.
Dad, where are the ho-hos at?
A little 11 p.m., 1 a.m., 3:30 a.m. snack.
Going over to the fridge to grab something.
So
he's made for sports radio.
God bless him. Yes, he is. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other end, they're back in action tonight, and they know how to win close games. So what has Lin Dunn, Fever GM, seen from her team? We'll find out next. 9 o'clock hour coming up. Wake up call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
9 o'clock on a Wednesday. That means the one, the only, the great Lin Dunn joins us. Tonight it is Fever and Aces inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Clean injury reports on both sides. This should be quite the entertaining one. It's been a lot of entertaining basketball here as of late. A lot of home games for the Fever. 3 more coming up this week. And again, Lin Dunn joins us. Now, Coach, this should be a good one here. First time the Aces in the building all year long, coming up again on Friday. I'm looking forward to tonight.
Good morning, folks. Yes, we're thrilled to have the Aces here in Gamebridge Arena. You know, this is the only team that we have not beaten this season. We've been fortunate this time around that we've gotten a win over every team, and now it's time to take on the defending champions here in Gamebridge. Looking forward to a big crowd. Excited to play them here.
Asia Wilson, pretty good at basketball, correct?
Damn good. She's the leading candidate right now for MVP. She's had an outstanding season, and she's just really, really tough.
Coach, good morning. This is probably stupid. Her numbers are unbelievable. Her scoring and rebounding numbers. When you watch her, you have a much better eye in basketball than we do here. You think? What are some of the little things she does that make her great?
Well, let's remember this. When she came out of South Carolina, she was basically a 5, a center, back to the basket player down on the block. She has expanded her game to the three-point line. She can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. She's got guard skills now. She's got a pull-up jumper. So she's so dimensional that she's difficult to guard. You know, she's everywhere. She's in the corner. She's at the top of the key. She's posting up. And she's big. She's strong. She's physical. I mean, she is really good.
Now, speaking of South Carolina centers, your very own has played pretty good basketball here over the last week. Aaliyah Boston, it seems like kind of 25-10. You almost pencil her in for. Highly efficient. She had some early season struggles, Coach, in the efficiency department. As of late, again, she's been terrific. What have you seen change for her?
Well, the great thing for Aaliyah is her ability to adapt to how we change the system, being much more up-tempo, much more pick and pop, pick and spot situations. And so she had to adapt to Caitlin Clark and how fast we were going to play. I am so impressed with the growth of Aaliyah Boston. She is now reminding me a little bit of what Asia Wilson did. This player is now a face-up player. She can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. She can post up. She can spot up out there on the perimeter and hit a face-up shot. So she is continuing to grow the versatility of her game, too. 30 points the other night, amazing.
The great Lin Dunn, Fever GM, with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. It's Fever Aces tonight, 7 o'clock there in Gamebridge. I wanted to ask you this. You go back to that dream game, overtime game, a game in which you trailed at halftime, trailed at the end of the third quarter. And a lot of the rhetoric after the game, the conversation was you all growing up by playing better and more composed in close games. Do you agree with that? When you watch your team now in these close games, what are the differences you see than maybe the beginning of the season?
Well, I liked what Caitlin Clark said after the Minnesota game. That she admitted she lost her composure there, and she let the officiating get to her, and that can't happen. And I thought, what happened in the Dream game? We got down, we fell behind. They're really good. I mean, they're a playoff team. Had they not been injured early in the season, they'd already be in. So I think when it got tough against the Dream, we kept our composure. And I thought Clark did a really good job of being the leader out there. Like, we're not going to get down. We're not going to get discouraged. We're just going to keep chipping away. And so we found a way to win. And that's a sign of a growth of a really good team, that you can be down and you can find a way to win at the end.
Lin Dunn with us on the Payless Liquors hotline, Fever GM. I want to ask as a follow-up, I had it on my sheet here, Coach, to ask you anyway, that composure with Caitlin Clark, whether it be complaining about the officiating to the officials, is that something you and Coach Sides come to her and say, hey, we need to clean this up? Does she understand and have that self-awareness that she doesn't need to do that? I know in the last week or so there's been some criticism on Caitlin Clark and some of her interactions there with the officials.
Well, the great thing about Caitlin is she knows it before we even have to address it. She knows after the game, after the fact, hey, I kind of lost it there. You know what I'm saying? I lost my poise. I lost my composure. I got to rein that in. You know, she is so highly competitive. And you've got to understand those elite competitive athletes, they want to win so bad, and sometimes they have trouble handling their frustration. And let's remember, guys, she's a rookie. She's not a 25, 27-year-old vet. So she's still learning how to handle the pros, how to handle her frustrations, how to deal with the referees. But we see growth all the time. Think where she is today versus the beginning of the season.
That voice is Lin Dunn. You hear her with us every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Tonight, Fever and Aces inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Fever, slight underdog in that one. Coach, we're about, 10-ish days away from the beginning of the playoffs. The format in round one, best of three, the road teams on the road for games 1 and 2. And then if game 3 is if it's necessary, it'll go back to that road team or the higher-seeded team, if you will. Are you good with this format? I don't know if I like it or not.
Well, of course I'm not good at it. You know, unless I'm the host. If I've got a top 4 seed, I love it. But if I'm not a top 4 seed, I think it's terrible. You know, we've got to go on the road, either probably to Connecticut or probably to Minnesota, one or the other. We're not sure yet. And we've got to split. We've got to find a way to win on the road. Or better yet, let's just sweep them in their gym in order to get a home game. And I think, you know, in the future, I think they're going to change it. It's going to be 1-1-1 as it should be. Everybody should get at least, if you get in the playoffs, you should get a home game. Come on, your fans deserve
agreed.
it. Let's grow up, WNBA league commissioner. Let's make sure that we reward teams that get in the playoffs with at least one home game. So, but we know we've done it. Hey, back in 2012 when we won the championship, we had to do the same thing. We had to go on the road. We had to figure out a way to split so we could get it back home and win.
Yeah, I could not endorse that more. And I just thought now with the charter flights, we could pull this off. You know, I understand a little bit of whatever the Vegas draw. You know, Vegas draws Connecticut in round one. I get that travel's very tough, but now with the charter flights, to me it seems like a no-brainer.
Well, the charter flights have really helped. You know, kudos to the league, kudos to the commissioner for just all of a sudden saying, hey, we're going to charter flight. And, you know, and I think that had a lot to do with Caitlin and security and all the things that were happening. But the difference in charter flights versus commercial is huge. It is the best thing that's happened to the WNBA in a long time.
You mentioned going the 1-1-1 for people that don't know. Again, that would be, you know, one on the road, then one back here in Cambridge, then a game 3 would be back on the road. Of course, Coach, as you know, for you have all the fans there anyway a lot of the times when you go on the road. So it's a de facto home game. I'm kidding, of course. You want to be in Cambridge, but you have so many fans anyway. Do you think they'll ever expand the playoffs to instead of best of 3, best of 5, or do you think that's not in the cards?
I think so. Yes, I do. I think that's coming with a tremendous amount of attendance that the league's had this year, the new media rights deal. I think you're going to see us following the same path that the NBA has done with their playoffs in the future. I really do. Well,
it's been a while since you guys have been on a plane. Where are we at book-wise? Any good books we've been consuming lately?
Well, I'm going to give you a leadership book today,
Okay.
Why the Best Are the Best. Why the Best Are the Best by Kevin Eastman. It's one of my favorite books. It's for people that coach. It's for people that teach. It's for the corporate world. It's for you guys. If you guys want to be the best, you need to read this book.
Well, we
now,
got a
let
long.
me tell you this, right up front.
Got a long ways to go.
There's no sex and
No
there's no
sex.
murder.
Okay, no
Yeah,
sex, no murder,
unfortunately, Yeah, no murder, no sex.
but a lot of leadership.
A lot of leadership,
Okay.
very empowering. You know, next week I'll get back to a book that's got all 3.
Okay. All right. Well, playoff time. We're gonna have to be locked in, so that will be vitally important for us. Boy, I'm seeing this right now. Okay.
That's right.
Why the best are the best. 25 powerful words. Okay, I got this right here.
There you go.
This could be on the Amazon list. It will be a raucous environment tonight inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Again, Aces tonight and Friday, and then the regular season finale at home coming up on Sunday afternoon for the Indiana Fever. Lin Dunn, thank you as always. You're the best.
Thanks, guys. Go Fever.
That's Lin Dunn right there. Payless Liquors Hotline. A little calmer segment with her this week than our Ched Z in studio with Freddie Fever last Wednesday.
That was fun last week, though.
I love me some Lin Dunn for many reasons. I love the line of "It's time to grow up, WNBA." How about that?
I mean, she's spot on.
You're pleading for the commissioner.
Well, I mean, I
She's
think,
spot on. She is spot on.
I mean, she's spot on. When you talk about the 1-1-1, I think that's part of it. And then, with what I asked her there at the NKB, with the new media rights deal and the fact that attendance is up, and whether it be Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark or Asia Wilson or some of these big time players, there's even some markets that have taken that to the next step, right? Indiana, I mean, here in Indy, we are one of them. That it's, I think, you have such a short regular season. I don't think it helps to throw a few more games in the postseason. So I think we're close to seeing both of those things change. And then the other thing, and she mentions her leadership book. When I followed John Calipari at Kentucky, Calipari always was reading some leadership book. And I'm looking at you and I'm looking at Mark Dykton. I have no idea how to find the right leadership book, motivational book, and I'm pretty certain I've never read one of those in my life. Have you ever read a leadership book in your life, Kevin Bowen?
I'm going to be honest. I couldn't even tell you the last book I've read. Period.
Well, I like reading. I
think there's a Mike Bray book on my desk back in our little cube area. I don't know. Maybe I read 50 pages out of that. I don't read.
There is a Mike Bray. What's the name of that book? Hang on.
It's sitting right there on my desk. I can picture it right now.
Keeping It Loose. Patience, Passion, and My Life in Basketball.
That's the Mike Bray book.
You can get it right now, hardcover for $17 on Amazon, which seems to be kind of expensive. No offense to Mike Bray.
What do you mean? Back-to-back Elite Eights for Mike Bray.
Where did he go? Was it Atlanta? The Hawks? Where was he a coach?
The Hawks.
He was a bench coach.
With Quinn Snyder.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They've got some Duke ties there. Yeah, it's a joke that the WNBA does this best of 3, 2 on the road. I don't like that at all. And again, the first 2 on the road. So for those that didn't totally follow that, right now, if the playoffs started today, the Fever would be the 6th seed. They would play the 3 seed. I think the 3 seed is like Connecticut, maybe, or maybe it's Minnesota, one of the two. The Fever would be in Minnesota, for example, for games 1 and 2. If they lose games 1 and 2, the season is over.
Yeah, it's done.
They don't get a home game. Now, if they're able to get a third game in that series, Lin Dunn mentioned splitting, then the winner-take-all game to move on to the semifinals would be winner-take-all. And in the pre-charter format, I kind of understand it. They don't do East versus West. They combine all the teams, so you do get some series of Seattle against, Atlanta or whatever. I mean, very long travel. But now that we have done the charter action here, first off, go to 5 games. So you go 2-2-1 as the format there. But at the very least, if you're going to do these best of 3, give me a 1-1-1.
Yeah, I'm interested, and we'll get back to Juju Brents here in a second.
Because the better seeded team should have the clinching game at home, too.
Well, I mean, that's what I was going to say. That's the other side
the
of this.
Game 7 should be on the home floor.
Should be on the home floor.
Of the better seed.
Yeah, they just, listen, they need to clean things up, and they know that in the WNBA. I'm not saying they've been caught off guard, but, the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and I don't want to just, kind of just mention them too, and it's probably Caitlin Clark more than anything, but, the popularity around the league has changed everything. I think what it also says is by not doing 1-1-1, it shows you the league has been so top-heavy that they're like, yeah, the road team, the lesser seed, doesn't have much of a chance. Like, that's how I view it as someone who has followed very little until the last season or 2 of the WNBA, right? Like the 2 seeds not losing to the 7 seed.
Yeah, and now we could have, depending on the Aces, they could be on the road too, and they're your,
They could.
2-time defending champ there. Connecticut, is that who it is? Thank you, Ryan Stevens, for that. That's who the matchup would be right now for the Fever. But again, still some seeding to be decided here in the last week and a half. 3.5-point underdog, the Fever tonight inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Fever won't know until maybe the last game of the season who they're facing, and I don't think that's for them. I think that's between Minnesota and Connecticut to figure out who's going to be the 2 and who's going to be the 3.
Could be locked into their own seed, though. Opponent, yes, but they could be locked in their own seed, so I'll be curious how much resting or if they do some of that on that end. Okay, Colts back to practice again later today. Any guesses on how they replace Juju Brents?
I don't know. I mean, Dallas Flowers was a healthy scratch on Sunday, and I know Gus Bradley said, well, you get down to the final corner, and it's like, they need to be able to play special teams. I think it was Jake Arthur that asked, well, who's going to be on the outside if there was an injury during the game? I'll say what I said at 7 o'clock. All these things can be true. You can feel terrible for Juju Brents, which I do. I feel bad for the kid. We interviewed him during training camp. Local guy, grew up a Colts fan, grew up here in and around Indianapolis. Family obviously following the Colts. So I think you can feel that way. Hey, I feel bad for the kid. I feel bad for the team. It's an absolute bad start to the season with having to deal with a couple key injuries, losing to the Texans the way that you did. The only saving grace is you're not going to get Jordan Love, who I think is fantastic. You're not going to get him on Sunday. And then, the conversation that we've had for the better part of 3 hours that I know fans are going to continue to have, and it's the first thing I saw on Twitter, my text messages, it was the first thing, and that is, this team, for whatever reason, whether Irsay didn't want to spend or Ballard didn't want to spend or Ballard believed in the young guys, the matter of fact is every fan, every media member, everyone who has followed this Colts team, KB, and you know it, and we talked about it, knew that the secondary did not have the depth and the quality depth to go 17 weeks. It's the reason I did not pick them to be a playoff team. I believe some of their units are absolutely playoff worthy, but they didn't do enough. And they didn't do enough at corner. And now we sit here today going into week 1, and we're all scratching our heads. Why didn't, and I'll go back to something you've talked about all show, you didn't have to go get a $20 million corner, but finding a couple pieces that gave you depth and gave you options. It blows my mind why they did not do this. And now they made this bed and they're going to have to sleep in it. And that's where we are. It's just, to me, it might be anger. It's more frustrating that we all pointed out that this could be or would be a problem. And we were all kind of the idiots. Now you got to watch the guys that are the young guys. And, for Juju Brents, this was a year of development. Hey, could he become kind of a number 1 corner on this defense? And you're going to be looking at a guy through 2 seasons, played 10 games in the NFL. It's a tough one, man.
Frankly, I think it's some of the biggest malpractice of the Chris Ballard era.
I agree.
I don't say that lightly because, A, it was so obvious. B, it's at a premium position. And again, there's multiple layers to it. I've mentioned the 4 boxes quite often in the secondary. You're asking for acceptable play, but you're also asking for out-of-the-ordinary health. And it is beyond unfortunate that Juju Brents has been in this position of now 8 injuries in his NFL career. 8 different injuries, 4 surgeries, 8 total injuries in, 15 months, 17 months, however long he's been in the NFL. It's awful. And, it's not like he had a clean bill of health in college. He missed his entire sophomore year at Iowa. Again, had that wrist surgery after his final games at Kansas State as well. So that's just the nature to it.
It's frustrating. That's what it is.
It's frustrating, and I would use the word confusing because, again, to me, it seems so obvious on paper. I brought this up earlier. There's been things I've disagreed with Chris Ballard before on, but I can get his thinking. I can understand where he's coming from. This one I never understood for months. Never understood it, and now this just brings it even more to light. Did see Colts made a couple of practice squad moves here, and oftentimes we see these practice squad moves and you just kind of brush them under the rug. But with the new NFL rules, where you can just bring guys up from the practice squad on game day, these moves actually matter a little bit more. For example, the Colts had Spencer Schrader brought up from the practice squad last week. Chris Lamons, a corner who took Juju Brents' spot on the 53-man roster, he was brought up from the practice squad. They brought back Ronnie Harrison Jr. So again, remember the safety that was cut kind of early in those weekend roster cuts there. He was a guy that I had on my 53-man roster. The Colts have brought him back, And then they also signed Kelvin Joseph, former second-round pick,
Oh,
much more of an outside corner. A
I
giant.
remember him.
What was he a giant or
he was
Dolphin Cowboy?
Yeah, he was drafted by the Cowboys. The reason I remember him is I followed him at Kentucky.
Got it.
He was a good player. Google some of the Cowboy stuff. He did not have a good time in Dallas.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way.
I think it's safe to say he's been a bust so far. Just 3 starts in his NFL career after being a second-round pick. So if you look at their practice squad right now, they have 4 corners on the practice squad, and I think you label all 4 of them outside corners. So it'll be interesting to see the week play out. Where's Dallas Flowers out at? Do they want to keep Kenny Moore in the slot? Do they put him outside? Do they bump one of these practice squad guys up? Because, again, if you look at Sunday, Juju Brents played through this injury. Brents played 62 of 79 snaps. I mean, that's a pseudo starter.
Right.
For you. Now,
it's a good amount.
If there's good news on this end, you're not playing C.J. Stroud and the Texans any of the next 3 weeks. You're probably playing 3 of the less potent, and I don't know. We'll see what the Bears look like, but, even with the Rome Odunze injury and things like that, a Malik Willis, Caleb Williams, Justin Fields next 3 weeks is not, C.J. Stroud or Tua Tagovailoa or Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers or any of these other QBs that you're playing in October and November. So I don't think you'll be tested too much in this area. Basically, I think you can get by in September. I know those are scary words to say, get by, but I do think you can. But some future tests certainly await in October and November.
Yeah, I mean, we looked it up. I mean, they have that stretch where they have what? They have the stretch where they have Trevor Lawrence, and then, of course, the Titans. Of course, Lawrence hasn't been good, so I don't know if I even throw Trevor Lawrence in there. I mean, you're talking Dolphins into C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen. We'll see where Aaron Rodgers is, Jared Goff, and obviously the Lions. If you don't like golf, well, the roster is good. I want to go back to, before we get to a check down, something you mentioned, and I think I know the answer, but it is a lingering question whenever we hear next from Ballard, and that is, it doesn't feel like the corner, you could say defensive backs, but let's stick with corner, that there was the yearning by the leadership to have the competition at that position and how different that was for other positions. I mean, I can even go back to last year. Anthony was always going to be the quarterback, but they at least played the game of Gardner Minshew. This year, we went into training camp, and one of the highlights of training camp, KB, was the wide receiver position. Alec Pierce versus A.D. Mitchell. They went out and spent, a premium pick on A.D. Mitchell to what? Bring competition to Alec Pierce in that wide receiver room. They went out with Laiatu Latu. And you may say, hey, they have a lot of defensive linemen, a lot of first and second round picks on that defensive line. Some guys making, like Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, making a ton of money. But they went out and they said, no, I mean, we get this competition now. We're going to have a big-time competition. Who are going to be the 10 guys that we have on the defensive line? And you have seen that throughout the roster, that they have talked and they have made it sound like to get better, they needed this competition. And it doesn't feel like they did that at corner. And I tend to think it's because, it's Ballard, this is kind of Ballard's baby. Okay, these are his babies, if you will, that he drafted these guys. And maybe he tried to say, hey, I'm not going to treat Alec Pierce this way, but with the corners, I'm trying to instill confidence in you guys that I believe in you. That's why I'm not bringing in vets. It was the wrong move then. Everyone said it was the wrong move. And then obviously you sit here today, we're talking to Stephen Holder in the 8 o'clock hour, and he's calling the situation they're in at corner as bleak. And it's week 2 of the NFL season, and you've had 1 injury. And it's bleak. Really? Come on.
Yeah, and just simply insurance. I mean, I don't care about their, mental makeup if they're worried about, oh man, did you see they signed that guy? That's going to hurt my confidence. Well, frankly, I don't think I want that dude playing corner.
Yeah, but I think Ballard feels that way.
If he feels that way, then I couldn't disagree with that more. Scared of competition. For a corner in the NFL, when you have to live out on an island as much as you do, you can't have that at all. It's just simply providing a little bit more in the insurance department. And right now, Colts don't have it at all, and they are in scramble mode trying to replace Juju Brents.
What's their best option? If I said Kevin Bowen today, what is it bringing up Dallas Flowers?
Yeah, but again, where's he at from the
with
Achilles? I mean, we're still talking about a guy that tore the Achilles less than a year ago.
And his preseason wasn't good.
Yeah.
It just wasn't good. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, maybe it could be better now, a couple weeks later. I mean, moving Kenny Moore to the outside intrigues me, given that you have other inside guys. But
yeah, I think you
even
feel
then,
better about your slot corner depth than you do your outside corner depth. So, that's where part of me says, okay, the Chris Lamons, the Samuel Womacs, the guys that are on your 53-man roster right now at corner, if Kenny Moore is an A slot, are those guys C slots? But then if you move Kenny over to outside, maybe the drop-off isn't as immense there. He certainly is not the body type they covet outside corner, but he's proven to be a fine player out there as well. Maybe not the playmaker necessarily that he can be at slot corner, but still, those are things they have to sit through. The thing is, Andy, I just don't think they'll get tested in any way, shape, or form the next 3 weeks to really feel that. I don't see the quarterbacks and the passing games of these teams here moving forward really testing you. So the answer on this might not be for a while. All right, pop quiz in a few, so go ahead and give us a ring for that. 317-239-1070 on that. And before all that, let's check it out.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
Yeah, obviously this morning it's been a lot of Juju Brents. We'll keep that conversation going. One of the fallouts from that is Dallas Flowers. We just mentioned there, is he healthy enough to play? He was a healthy scratch on Sunday. Now, Gus Bradley spoke with the media before we all knew about the injury to Juju Brents. He was asked about Dallas Flowers. Here's what defensive coordinator Gus Bradley had to say.
Sometimes those decisions, when you get to the third corner, the fourth corner, sometimes that's special teams value and where he's at there. So, there was some conversation about it, but we just felt that what was best for that game, that particular game, was to go with Sam. And some of it is special teams value.
Again, the Colts will practice today. Coming up 2 o'clock, I believe, is start time for practice. So we'll get injury updates. Matt Gay, Josh Downs, DeForest Buckner. Seems to be a little optimism on some of those names. So we'll monitor that as we get into the week. Again, Fox coming up Sunday, 1 o'clock. You will get Greg Olson on the call. And again, I don't think he has called the Colts game before. At least I can't recall one here in recent time. So looking forward to that. I think Greg Olson does an outstanding job on the color. All right, tonight inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse, it'll be the Fever and the Aces. Just had Lin Dunn on earlier. Did not know that from Lin Dunn in mentioning that that's the only team they have not beaten all year. Las Vegas Aces lost to them twice out in Vegas much earlier in the season. Now they'll get them at home tonight and coming up. I think it's 7:30 on Friday. 7 o'clock tonight, 7:30 on Friday. We might have a pair of tickets to the Friday game to give away.
I like this.
At some point.
That's a big ticket.
But again, WTHR, the sister station for that, coming up tonight. 7 o'clock, the Fever here. Just 4 games left in their regular season.
Yeah, quickly, Major League Baseball, Reds 3-0 over the Cardinals yesterday. David Bell tossed in the 6th. Didn't matter. Reds win yesterday. Cubs 6-3 over the Dodgers. Final homestand for the Indianapolis Indians, 13-3 over Rochester. They have a day game. It's going to be hot, but it's going to be a nice day. But it's going to be like 88 degrees at some point. I'm about to lose a sweatshirt once I leave here.
A little workout action if you're going over.
You like that?
It's a victory
no problem
field.
with that.
Looking at college football, week 3, not an outstanding slate by any means. Game day is South Carolina LSU. Did I see that? I mean, I feel like they should go to Camp Randall. Won't that be the better atmosphere? Alabama at Wisconsin?
Well, okay,
I don't know if it's going to be a great game, but isn't that juicy?
My theory here is, do they not want to be at the same game?
No, it's a Fox game, isn't it?
As Fox, but here's the thing. They both were at the same game, the Michigan game, last week. So is College Game Day saying, hey, we don't want to be next to Fox? And then is there, and I can't remember the rule, but there was a rule that they could only have a team so many times. Is that, I can't remember if that's a home team or if that's like, Alabama's a part of this game. Do they want to wait for their Alabama college game days, I should say, till later in the season. South Carolina LSU is a stinker.
You're making a lot of sense,
I'm
but
sorry.
screw it. College game day should go to the best game each week, period. I don't
agree.
care who the teams are. I don't care where it's played, what network it's on. I get it doesn't work like that, but that's my
Yeah, but I mean, think
2
about
cents.
this. I mean, LSU had, they choked away week 1. South Carolina nearly choked away, should have lost week 1. I can't remember who it was to. Well, it wasn't an FCS school, but it was a lower level school. They should have lost that game, and then all South Carolina had to do to earn college game day is beat what I think is probably our 5 or a 6 win Kentucky team on Saturday. Good for them, though.
The state rundown for this weekend, Ball State is getting 36.5 points and a whole lot of money to take on the U. That is a 3:30 kick. It will be Notre Dame and Purdue. Notre Dame, that line continues to drop. It's down to 10 points, started at right around a couple touchdowns. That is in Ross-Ade. CBS, Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson. Coming up 3:30 on Saturday, and then IU and UCLA Saturday night from the Rose Bowl. IU a field goal favorite. Has IU and Purdue ever been on ABC, CBS, and NBC? You take those 3 networks. Have they ever both been on them in the same weekend?
You keep asking these questions. I don't know the answer. Scotty, figure it out. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's
an answer of it being yes would probably be like Purdue played Notre Dame on NBC and
right.
like IU Michigan somehow got into the 3:30
or
ABC
Penn
slot.
State or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, something like that.
We're
I
not
do
used
know.
to that, but
no. Hey, it's
Noah
gonna
Eagle,
happen.
Todd Blackledge calling the IU game, Nessler and Danielson on the Purdue call. Some big-time football here.
Times are changing.
Hoosiers.
Hey,
Times are changing.
You know what they say? This is a Cignetti game. If Cignetti's the winner that he thinks he is, he can take his team and go beat a crappy UCLA team. How about that?
Is this a bigger weekend for Cignetti or Walters?
Okay, so Purdue fans will disagree with this. I would still say Indiana, I have a higher expectation this particular season on Indiana. I would still say Indiana.
But which coach
it's
does it
slight.
mean more to? I mean, you could argue then it's Walters if this is year 2. Cignetti, it's only his 3rd game. But basically, why I asked the question is this.
Yeah, it's a good question.
While you ponder it. Cignetti and IU, I look at this game as like, is this kind of one of those pendulum games from, 8-4 is real to, wait a minute, you could be back into the 5-7, mold. It's probably a lot to put on a week 3 game like that.
No,
but this
I agree
does
with you.
seem like one of those swing games. For Purdue's sake, Ryan Walters was brutally honest earlier this week. I mean, this is a game I've circled. I mean, his tenure's got nothing on it of note. Now, he's only a year plus into it, but these games don't grow on trees. You don't get a ranked team in your backyard very often, a reeling ranked team in your backyard very often. How do you handle that? So, Cignetti will have theoretically, more of these opportunities, but again, we've seen IU have these kind of early season Big Ten games where it's like, hey, they went 4-0 in the non-conference, and then they lose, and now all of a sudden they've lost 6 straight Big Ten games.
I guess I'll stick with Indiana. I'm just going Indiana because if they win a game like UCLA with their schedule this season, this is not next year, it's not the year after, this season they can get to a bowl game. I guess I feel like Ryan Walters is still at the very infant stage, if you will, of rebuilding this team, and they do get Nebraska, that's a top 25 team at home, and they do get Penn State as well, and they, of course, would have a chance at Indiana, the final game of the year, to try to get one of these big wins for Ryan Walters. So I don't know the right answer there. I mean, you would hope the better game is Purdue, right? That Purdue shows up, Hudson Card can throw for a couple touchdowns, and they can keep it close there against Notre Dame.
I don't hope that.
Well, you don't hope that. Me and Mark
that
do.
sounds like hell.
How are you going to be if they lose?
Pissed.
Yeah.
Sad.
Were you not
Whiny.
here for Monday's show?
Pathetic.
You're going to...
A poor husband.
Are those
a poor
socks
father.
that Tim got you still intact?
Yeah, I actually wore them Sunday.
Even after the loss?
Yeah, I just thought to myself, you know what?
Maybe they're bad
It's
mojo.
not the socks' fault.
Yeah, maybe those socks are bad mojo.
I need to stick with them.
Maybe it's bad for everyone. Again, a listener brought KB Notre Dame socks, and they've been
shout out to Tim.
disappointing.
Outstanding.
And Tim brought me Giant socks.
I'm not going to hold Tim. It's not Tim's fault.
Well, they stink, and they're 0-1, and Mark's 1-0 with his Bears, but Caleb Williams threw for 90 yards.
That's okay.
It's kind of bad mojo going on with these socks.
Hey, A year ago, we would have lost that game.
I'll walk to West Lafayette. I'll watch the game from one of those windmills north of West Lafayette to get a win.
Kyle Larson going to do the double again next year. That's the only piece of news overnight. He'll be with Errol McLaren again for the 500 and then to Charlotte. All right, coming up next, let's do it. The pop quiz, 239-1070, 317-239-1070. Pop quiz coming up next.
Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Just looked up some baseball playoff standings here. Mark, your Cubs 4 back of the final wild card spot. What do we have left here? 15 to go, something like that?
Something like that, yeah. I mean,
we
we've talked about
believe?
in the break. They're doing the same thing they did.
12 to go.
They've blown so many games. They've gotten shut out like 5 times since the All-Star break. They're going to win some games, but they're not making the playoffs. I've said that since June. They're going to lurk. They're going to keep us entertained, and they're going to go down their leg.
All right, so to me, and Scotty J's in here for the pop quiz, he will remember this. I don't know if you knuckleheads will, but to me, the more interesting thing is the Braves and the Mets for the final wild card. Atlanta's been very injured, but Atlanta has also ruined the lives of New York Mets fans like 9 different times in the last 15 years, and they basically have beat them in the final week or so of the season many times, and it's lining up that could happen again. So if you're asking me, I don't give a damn about you guys as Reds or the Cubs or the Cardinals. I'm hoping the New York Mets fan implosion happens again, losing a playoff spot to a team that's beat up and a team that has had mind control over them in the Atlanta Braves. So that's all I'm rooting for right now. That's it.
I know. I get happier when I see the Cubs and the Cardinals have lost more than I see the Reds winning at this point of the season. Such a sorry fan comment, but I can't hide the truth here on this Wednesday morning. All right, it's time for the pop quiz. Mark Dykton, give us a name for the pop quiz.
Well, I will go Fast Fingers, which is Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Mike.
Hey, guys. Morning.
Mike, how you doing, man?
Oh, not too bad. Hey, before we do the pop quiz, man, so I remember when KB used to get all over Ballard for not having a wideout. And I think as a radio station and all your listeners, I think we got to start getting on his ass to get some corners or secondary help. Maybe 3 years from now, he'll address it like he did a wideout.
Hey, he did. He did mention whiteout the other press conference.
Yes, he did.
I know.
Yeah, he did. He did dial it back to that there.
So in 2027, he'll then have
I was
ample
going to
amount
say,
of quarterbacks.
Mike accurately points out it takes many years because I believe the first combine reference was like 2019 or 2020 on the old whiteouts there.
They're young, but I do think we're really skilled. I mean, Bowen ought to at least be freaking happy for once. I mean, I got heard about beat over the head with wideouts forever.
Well,
the crazy thing now is we kind of wish he got a corner instead of a wideout.
Well, and I'm
joking.
Selfishly, I was hoping he would mention that he was listening and reading. You know, he did mention that the previous time. But, yeah, Mike, I'll see what I can do on that end. But like you said, probably no promises till about 2027 on that. Appreciate you calling. I think this is doable. Andy Sweeney,
Agreed.
Go ahead and throw number 1 his way.
All right, let's get a winner on this Hump Day Wednesday, Mike. Question number 1. Former Packer Alan Lazard caught Aaron Rodgers. I love it. Caught Aaron Rodgers' first touchdown pass as a Jet in Monday night's loss to the Niners. Who caught Aaron Rodgers' last touchdown pass as a Green Bay Packer? How about that? Was it Alan Lazard, Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, Robert Tonyan?
I'm going to go with Aaron Jones.
Mike, you sure, brother?
All right. Nope, not.
I was so pissed when this dude didn't come to Notre Dame. Iowa State, if I remember correctly. That's why I was really pissed. I'm like, who the hell says no to Notre Dame and goes to Ames, Iowa?
He was from Iowa, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm just looking that up now. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's go with, I guess, Kristen Watson, man. I don't know where Tunion's from.
Mike, I couldn't hear you, brother. You're breaking up.
You said, I said Robert Tonyan.
Yeah, you're a little
Still breaking up.
Indiana State, I want to say for Tanya. And if Notre Dame's losing recruits to Indiana State, then we got major issues. He probably doesn't even remember who the fourth answer was.
just say Alan Lazard.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that sucked.
Bob Elliott is the one who recruited Lazard at Notre Dame.
The old
Bob
DB
Elliott.
coach? I think he had some Iowa ties.
There you go.
All right, Mike, that was horrific. Let's
So much
try
for
to
this
move
being
on here.
doable.
Number 2, who led the Colts in tackles on Sunday? Was it Zaire Franklin, Julian Blackman, E.J. Speed, or Nick Cross?
I believe that would be E.J. Speed.
Question number 3.
Take back what I said earlier.
Colts
You want to
receiver-
edit that, Mark?
Colts receiver Alec Pierce had a 60-yard touchdown and a 57-yard reception against Houston on Sunday. Named the last Colts receiver to have 2 receptions of 50 or more yards in the same game. Was it T.Y. Hilton, Pierre Garçon, Reggie Wayne, Dante Moncrief?
Go with Pierre Garçon.
Garçon.
Number 4 here, Mike. The White Sox, they were eliminated from MLB playoff contention on April 13th. No, wait, actually last month officially. Can you name the other American League team that is out of the postseason? Is it the Angels, the Athletics, the Blue Jays, or the White Sox are the only one?
I believe, I want to say they're the only team.
Well, then say it.
Yeah, they're the only team.
Okay, all right, there you go.
All right, question number 5. The Fever hosts the Vegas Aces tonight and Friday night in Cambridge. The Aces are the only team that the Fever have not beaten this season. Name one of the 2 teams that the Fever have swept in the 2024 WNBA season. There's 2 of them. Name just one of them.
Dallas Stars.
Well, that's the hockey team.
How about another guess?
Not Stars. Oh, man, it feels like Monday. Go with the Atlanta Dream.
Look at that.
Oh, he got it right.
Look at that.
He got it right.
Throw a dart at a board. You never know if you're going to hit it.
I feel like Mike got the easy ones wrong and the difficult ones right.
Yeah, to be fair,
little
Dallas is one of the 12 cities. Unfortunately, I don't think Stars are one of the 12 nicknames there.
Brett Hall's not getting ready for the game. No.
Storm he was going for there. Sparks. I'm trying to think of our other S's. Sun, right?
Yeah.
Sky. We got a lot of
Dallas
those.
Wings is where he's going.
Dallas
but yeah.
Wings where he was thinking there. All right. Boy, that number 1 was so painful. Alan Lazard, the Iowa State former Notre Dame recruit.
I guess we count that as a correct answer.
Did he ever say that?
Yes! Who did he have thrown the ball at Iowa State? I need to go back and look. Actually, I'm not going to go back and look.
Purdy.
I shouldn't even say that. It
No.
wasn't Purdy,
Did Purdy
was
start
it?
forever there?
It might have been. So, yeah, Lazard was the answer to number 1. Nick Cross, the answer to number 2. He led the Colts
He said
in
speed,
tackles.
right?
He said EJ Speed. Pierre Garçon, the last Colts to have 2 receptions, 50 yards or more. And I know you guys see it in front of you. Curtis Painter was the quarterback for that. How about that? Now, that's where you lose all your money. Not that Pierre would be the wide receiver. He's a very good player.
Scotty,
but
is
the
that a
Curtis Painter. How about
Prime
that?
time game, if I remember correctly. Prime time in 2011. Gosh, nothing says they thought Manning was going to play that season than that. Unbelievable.
You think?
White Sox, the only team eliminated in the AL, and yes, the Atlanta
He got
Dream
it.
or the Phoenix Mercury, the teams that they have. swept.
I was laughing at Mike when he said the Dallas Stars. He had to then freeze in his mind and think, can I name any other WNBA teams?
Well, but then he said the Atlanta
and
Dream.
then he said the Atlanta Dream,
Like
and
it was
he was
nothing.
exactly right. So
Speaking
good for him.
of, little historical note here, Mark, you said we're going to have Gary Danielson on coming up Friday?
Yep. Friday,
So
7:40.
the legendary college football color man, certainly
Love
former
Gary Danielson.
Boiler quarterback.
Love it.
And yes, as weird as it sounds to college football fans, that duo, Nessler and Danielson on the Big Ten call coming up, I guess Big Ten independent call, coming up Saturday at 3:30, Purdue and Notre Dame, 3:30 on CBS.
Oh, that's great. Love Gary Danielson. Can't wait to talk with him coming up on Friday. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, one final time. We'll wrap things up on the Wednesday right here. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
A great Thursday night matchup coming up tomorrow night. It'll be Bills and Dolphins in that one. Certainly that's marquee for Amazon here early in the season. Looking forward to that. And mark your Bears Sunday Night Football this week against the Texans.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there you go.
How about that?
We'll be rooting for the Bears around here then, won't we?
Yes.
And then
I
rooting
like that.
against them a week from now.
Certainly. I'm curious, and I know we're looking ahead a little bit next week, how much Bear blue and orange is in that building. I think secondary ticket market is pretty pricey there.
Yeah, someone reached out and they
Colts
said,
and Bears.
"Are you seeing the secondary market for the tickets?" I'm like, "Yeah." Between that and the Steelers game, I feel like that's going to be the two big,
back to back.
Yeah,
on the schedule.
Those are
here.
gonna be the two expensive tickets.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're gonna, what NFL bases are gonna infiltrate, fan base is gonna infiltrate Lucas Oil Stadium the most, it's probably those two. Obviously, the Steelers, it's become almost an annual thing, whether you play here or there. For the Bears, this is the first time in 8 years. That's how the schedule cadence works in the NFL. I guess it's a little different with now the 17th game. You have an extra game on your schedule each season. I'm trying to think what the Colts' extra game this year is. They play the NFC North. Who's the other NFC team they play?
They face the
Your Giants. Is that right?
They face the Giants out of the NFC East. That's the extra game. Which, by the way, if you're going to pull a game, that's a pretty good job.
Yeah,
That's a pretty good job.
Right.
The end of the year, a team that's fighting for the number 1, 2, or 3 pick in the NFL draft. That's pretty good.
Do the Giants have a young quarterback they would turn to late in the year? That's not Daniel Jones.
No, Drew Lock,
Tommy DeVito,
Tommy Cutlets. Or Drew Lock, one or the other. So the answer to that is
a no.
The answer to that is absolutely not. I think the backup thing, I was listening to Unsportsmanlike ESPN Radio on the 6 o'clock hour coming in, and they were talking, Evan Cohen made the point of, there's this scuttle out there that maybe Ryan Tannehill becomes an option for some of these teams. Maybe Green Bay looks into a Ryan Tannehill if the Jordan Love, situation continues the way it is.
Matt LaFleur downplayed that.
Yeah, I forgot all about Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
I don't mind. And then just speaking of that Bears game, the lowest ticket that I'm seeing on Vivid Seats, which is connected to ESPN.com, is $226. 600 level section for the Bears game.
Wow, that is big. Wow, there's going to be a lot of Bears fans there.
Yeah, that is nasty.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Good stuff today. All the Juju Brents conversation all day. Jake at noon, JMV at 3. Have a good afternoon. Check out the podcast, 1075thefan.com.